Chapter LXX6. Mr. Oakley is in despair at the loss of Johanna. The anxiety of poor Mr. Oakley increased each moment as he and the preacher neared the house of Arabella Wilmot's friends. We regret to say that Mr. Lupin did enjoy the mental agony of the father, but it was in his nature so to do, and we must take poor humanity as we find it. It must be recollected that Mr. Lupin had, through Johanna, suffered great malefactions. The treatment he had received at the hands of Big Ben, although most richly deserved, had been on account of Johanna, and as regarded the old spectacle maker himself, he had always occupied an antagonistic position as regarded Mr. Lupin. No wonder then, we say, that human nature, particularly in its evangelical variety, was not proof against the fascination of a little revenge. Now, Mr. Lupin felt so sure that he had made no mistake, but that it was no other than the fair Johanna whom he had seen in what he called the unseemly apparel, that he did not feel inclined to draw back for a moment in the matter. Curiosity, as well as a natural to him feeling of malignity, urge him to stick by the father in order that he may know the result of inquiries that he, Lupin, had no opportunity or excuse for making, but which Mr. Oakley may institute with the most perfect and unquestionable profundity. As we have before had occasion to remark, the distance between Oakley's shop and the residence of the friends of Arabella was but short, so that, at the speed which the excited feelings of the fond father induced him to adopt, he soon stood upon the threshold of the residence, beneath the roof of which he hoped, notwithstanding the news so confidently brought by Lupin, to find his much-loved, idolized child. "You shall see," he said to Lupin, catching his breath as he spoke, "you shall see how very wrong you are." "Humph," said Lupin. "You shall see," continued poor Oakley, still dallying with the knocker, "you shall see what an error you have made, and how impossible it is that my child, my good and kind Johanna, could be the person you saw in Fleet Street." "Ah," said Lupin. Mr. Oakley knocked at the door, and, as one of the family had seen him through the blinds of the parlor window, he was at once admitted, and kindly received by those who knew him and his worth well. He asked, in an odd gasping manner, that Mr. Lupin may have permission to come in, which was readily granted, and with a solemn air, shaking his head at the vanities he saw in the shape of some profane statuary in the hall, the preacher followed Oakley to the dining-room. It was an aunt of Arabella's to whom they were introduced, and, with a smile, she said, "Really, Mr. Oakley, a visit from you is such a rarity that we ought not to know how to make enough of you when you do come. Why, it must have been Christmas 12 a month since you were last beneath this roof. Don't you remember when your dear, good, pretty Johanna won all hearts?" "Yes, yes," said Oakley, glancing triumphantly at Lupin. "My dear child, whom all the world loves, God bless her. She is pure and good and faultless as an angel." "That, Mr. Oakley," said the lady, "I believe she is. We are as fond of her here, and always as glad to see her, as though she belonged to us. Truly, we quite envy you such a treasure as she is." Tears gushed into the grateful father's eyes as he heard his child, his own Johanna, she who reigned all alone in his heart, and yet filled it so completely, so spoken of. How glad he was that there was someone besides himself present to hear all that, although that one was an enemy. With what a triumphant glance he looked around him. "Humph," said Lupin. That humph recalled Oakley to the business of his visit, and yet how hot and parched his lips got, when he would have framed the all-important question, "Is my child here?" And how he shook and gasped for breath a moment before he could speak. At length he found courage not to ask if Johanna was there. No, no, he felt that he dared not doubt that. It would have been madness to doubt it, sheer insanity. So he put the question indirectly, and he contrived to say, "I hope the two girls are quite well, quite well." "Two girls," said the aunt. "Two girls." "Yes," gasped Oakley. "Johanna and Arabella, you know, your Arabella, and my Johanna, my child. You ought to know, Mr. Oakley, considering that they are at your house, you know. I hope that neither of them have been at all indisposed." Surely that is not the case, and this is not your strange way of breaking it to us, Mr. Oakley. The bereaved father, yes, at that moment he felt that he was a bereaved father, clutched the arms of the chair upon which he sat, and his face turned of a ghastly paleness. He made an inarticulate effort to speak, but could only produce a strange gurgling noise. Gracious heavens, he is ill, cried Arabella's aunt. No, madam, said Lupin, he is only convinced. Convinced of what? Of what he himself will tell you, madam. Help, help, cried Oakley. Help, my child, my Johanna, my beautiful child. Mercy, help, give her to my arms again. Oh, no, 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 she could not leave me thus. It is false, it is some desperate juggle. My child, come once again to these arms. God, God help me. Arabella's aunt rose in the greatest alarm, and rung the bell so sharply that it brought everybody that was in the house to that room, and Mr. Lupin, when he saw what a congregation there was, rose up and said in a snuffling voice, "Is there any objection to a prayer?" "The greatest at present, sir," said Arabella's aunt. "Sir, there is a time for all things. The state of poor Mr. Oakley now claims all our care. If you are his friend," at these words, Oakley appeared to shake off much of the prostrating effects of the first dreadful conviction that what Lupin had told him was true, and he said, "No, no, he is no friend, he is a bitter enemy, the enemy of my peace and of my dear child. I am calmer now, and I demand, I implore, that that man be made to leave this house." "Brother Oakley," said Lupin, "you brought me here, and I now command you therefore, be gone, villain, be gone. Go and exult over the heartbroken father's grief. Go and tell the tale where you will. You cannot move me now. Go, go, go. Truly I will go soon. But first of all, I say to you, Brother Oakley, hardened sinner as you are, repent. Down upon your knees all of you, and join me in prayer, that the unbelievers may roll upon billows of burning brimstone, and that, "Come," said a man who happened to be in the house upon some domestic errand, "Mrs. Wilmot says you are to go, and go you shall. Come, be off. I know who you are. You are the rascal that married the widow in Moorfields, but who, they say, has another wife in Liverpool. If you don't go, I shall give you in charge for bigamy, and the widow says she will spend her last penny in prosecuting you." Mr. Lupin unmasked. Mr. Lupin unmasked. To meet any one half so well informed about his affairs would have been a terrible blow to Mr. Lupin, but when he found that this man, who was a kind of jobbing cabinet maker, knew so much, his great goggle eyes opened to an alarming width, and he made a movement towards the door. Still, he did not like to go without saying something. "Flee, ye wretches," he said, "from the wrath to come. You will all go into the bottomless pit, you will, and I shall rejoice at it, and sing many songs of joy over you. Scoffers and mockers, I leave you all to your fate. The devil will have you all, and that is a great comfort and gratification to the elect and to the saints." With this, Mr. Lupin made a precipitate retreat, having achieved about as little in the way of satisfying his curiosity as could very well be conceived. It was a relief, a great relief to Mr. Oakley to be rid of such a witness to his feelings as Lupin, and when he had fairly gone, and the outer door was closed upon him, the spectacle maker, with clasped hands and countenance expressive of the greatest possible amount of mental agony, spoke. "Dismiss all but ourselves, madam," he said. "There's that to say which may be said to you alone, but which it would break my heart to say to many." The room was soon clear, and then Oakley continued in a low, faltering voice to make those inquiries, each answer to which was so fatal to his peace of mind. "Madam," he said, "is not my child, my Johanna, here staying on a visit with Arabella?" "No, no, certainly not." This was so frightfully conclusive that it was some few moments before he could go on, but when he did, he said, "Is Arabella in the house?" "That, Mr. Oakley," replied the aunt, "is a question I cannot answer you at the moment, but rest and compose yourself for a few moments, and I will ascertain myself if she be in or out, and if the latter, when she was last seen." I am much beholden to you, madam. I am a poor old man, much broken in spirit, and with but one strong tie to bind me to a world which has nearly done with me. That tie is the love of my dear child, Johanna. Alas, if that be broken, I'm all adrift, and at the mercy of the winds and waves of evil fortune, and the sooner I close my eyes in the long sleep of death, the better for me and all who feel for me. No, Mr. Oakley, I look upon it as a thing almost criminal to despair. There is one maxim which I have learnt in my experience of life, and which I am sure you must have had abundant opportunities of learning likewise. It is never to trust to appearances. The old man looked at her with a saddened aspect. It was quite evident his feelings had been too strongly acted upon to make any philosophy available to him, and when she left the room to make the inquiries concerning Arabella, he wrung his hands and wept. Yes, he said, yes, I am truly alone now, a wreck, a straw upon the ocean of society. The sooner I drift in the grave now, the better for me, and all who pity the old man. Oh, Johanna, Johanna, my child, my beautiful, why did you not wait until I was dead before you left me? Then I should have slept calmly and known nothing. But now my days and nights will be dreams of horror. The door opened and the aunt reappeared. Arabella is not within, she said, and has not been seen for some hours now. When last seen her manner was evidently perturbed. But now, Mr. Oakley, sit down by me and tell me as clearly and as distinctly all you know and all you fear. There are few evils in this world, but there are some remedies for, and you shall have my true and calm opinion if you will tell me all. It is something astonishing, and yet one of the most ordinary of mental phenomena, to note what a power a cool and clear intellect will exert over one that is distracted and full of woe and clamorous grief. Mr. Oakley did sit down by the side of Arabella's aunt, and he told her all that happened, the girl of which, of course, was the real or supposed appearance of Johanna in Fleet Street, in male attire. The collateral circumstances, such as the hurried and half-frantic farewell of him in the shop by Johanna, and the misrepresentation by Arabella that she, Johanna, was going to stop there, evidently made a deep impression upon the aunt. Her countenance changed visibly, as she said faintly, "God help us all." "Lost, lost," cried Oakley. "Yes, you, evening you, hopeful as you were, and hopeful as you would fain have made me, evening you, now that you know all, feel that she is lost. God, truly, only can help me now." "No, Mr. Oakley," said the aunt, rallying, "I will not yet trust to appearances, although I own that they are bad. I will come to no conclusion until I have seen Arabella and got the truth from her. It is quite clear that there is some secret between the two young creatures. It is quite clear that there is something going on that we know nothing of, and to speculate upon which may only involve us in an inextricable labyrinth of conjectures. I say, there is some secret, but it may not be a guilty one. Not guilty. No, Mr. Oakley, there are many degrees of indiscretion to pass through before the gulf of guilt is reached at last. I have faith in Arabella, I have faith in Johanna, and evening now, admitting for a moment the truth of what that man whom you brought with you here reports, Johanna may only have to be blamed for folly. Do you think he did so see her? I doubt it much. Mother, said a lad of 15, coming hastily into the room. Mother, he paused upon seeing Mr. Oakley there, and stammered out some apology. He had only come to tell his mother that a whole suit of his clothes were missing from his room and that he could find them nowhere, and he could not make it out. And one of his hats was gone too, and a pair of shoes, and old Oakley fell back in his chair with a groan. "She has them," he said. "She has them." Chapter 90. Morning in Fleet Street again. Another day has dawned upon the great city, another sun has risen upon the iniquities of hosts of men, but upon no amount of cold-blooded, hardened, pitiless criminality that could come near to that of Sweeney Todd. No, he certainly held the position of being in London, then the worst of the worst. But who shall take upon himself now to say that in this pest-ridden, loyalty-mad, abuse-loving city of London, There are not some who are more than evening Sweeney Todd's equals. Who shall say that hidden scenes of guilt and horror are not transacting all around us, that would, in their black iniquity, far transcend anything that Sweeney Todd has done or dreamt of doing? Let the imagination run riot in its fanciful conjectures of what human nature is capable of, and in London there shall be found those who will reduce to practice the worst frenzied deeds that can be conceived. Yes, the dawn of another day had come, and Todd had made all his preparations. Nothing was wanting but the match that was to set Fleet Street, he fondly hoped, in a blaze. His own house, he felt quite certain, could not escape. It would be a charred mess long before any effectual means could be procured to check the devastation of the flames. And then, as the good ship spread its swelling sails to the wind to bear him to another shore, he should be lighted upon his way by the glare of the great fire in Fleet Street, that no one would be able to guess the origin of. So he told himself. Short-sighted mortals that we are, how little Todd, with all his cleverness, all his far-seeing thrift and fancy, dreamt of the volcano upon which he stood. How little he for one moment imagined it was possible that the sword of justice hung over him by so slender a thread. How he would have glared at any one who may have told him that he only moved about by sufferance, and yet such was the fact. Sir Richard Blunt could put his hand upon him at any moment and say, "Todd, you are my prisoner. To Newgate, from where only you will emerge to your trial, and to the scaffold." No, Todd, good easy soul, had not the slightest idea of his real position upon that morning. He waited rather impatiently for the arrival of Johanna to take down the shutters, and she urged upon Sir Richard Blunt and her friends at the fruiterers the propriety of her going and doing that morning piece of work, but they would not hear of it. She at length used an argument which made Sir Richard adopt another course than keeping her at the fruiterers until Todd should get out of all patience and open his shop himself. "It is possible," she said, "that I may be subjected to ill usage if I am not there, and then being compelled to call for aid as I may, you would feel that you were forced to take Todd into custody before the time at which you have resolved so to do." "That is true," said Sir Richard, and then, after some little consideration, he added, "I have a plan that will save you both ways. You shall be in time, and yet you shall not take down Todd's shutters." They could none of them conceive at the moment how Sir Richard intended to manage this, but they quickly saw that it was easy enough. Opening just a little way one of the windows of the first floor at the fruiterers, he blew a whistle that he had suspended round his neck by a small chain. In the course of a few moments, Cratchit walked into the shop. "Governor here?" he said. "I heard him a-chirping for me just now, didn't I?" "Yes, Cratchit," said the fruiterer, who knew him quite well. "Step upstairs. You will find him there." Cratchit was soon in the presence of Sir Richard and Johanna and the fruiterer's daughter. He made a rough sort of salute to the whole party, and then remarked again that he had heard the governor a-chirping. He rather thought. "Yes, Cratchit," said Sir Richard, "you're quite right. You know this young lady here?" indicating Johanna. "Reether," said Cratchit. "Well, then, you will seem to be passing Todd's shop when she commences taking down the shutters, and, seeing that they are too heavy for such a mere boy, you good-naturedly take them down for him. You understand? It is the last time that they will be taken down for Todd, I think." "All's right," said Cratchit. "I understands. It's as good as done. Lord, what a scrooge there will be at the hanging o' that Barber, to be sure, unless he manages to cheat the gallows. And I takes notice in my hexperience as them before worry bad unseldom does try that before game on, with all their bounce." "Now, Miss Oakley," said Sir Richard Blunt, "I think, then, your time has come, and as Cratchit will take down the shutters, you may as well go over at once. I think you thoroughly understand what you have to do, and if Todd asks you where you lodged, you had better say that the servants here offered to let you sleep by the kitchen fire, and you accepted the offer, for he may be watching for you now, and see you come out of this house, for all we know to the contrary. And now remember, without any reference to my plans or what I would rather do, if you feel yourself, or fancy you feel yourself in the least danger, take the means I have pointed out to you of summoning aid, and aid will come to you. "I will," said Johanna. "Heaven speed you." Then, "This will be the last day, I think, of the career of that bold bad man. I intend to make such an effort to get under his house today, as I hope and expect will enable me to come at the grand secret, namely, of how he disposes of his victims so quickly, for that there is some wonderful jugglery in it, I am certain." Johanna took a kind leave of the fruiter's daughter, who had lavished upon her all those attentions which, in Johanna's position, became so precious from one of her own sex, and then, assuming a careless manner, with her hat put on in a boyish slovenly sort of way, she boldly crossed the road to Sweeney Todd's. He had been watching through a hole in the upper part of one of the shutters. In a moment all sorts of ugly suspicions took possession of his mind. What could Charlie Green, his errand boy from Oxford, who knew no one, and was unknown to all London, doing at a tradesman's house in Fleet Street at such an hour in the morning? How came he to know the people of that house? How came he to dream of going there? Todd was boiling with anger and curiosity when he opened the door and admitted Johanna, a thing that he was mindful enough to do before she knocked for admission, which alone would have been amply sufficient to point out to her that she had been watched from some peephole in the house. He stretched out his hand and dragged her in. He controlled his temper sufficiently to enable him to gratify his curiosity. He made quite certain that Charlie Green would tell him some story of where he had been, which should not convict the fruiterer. By the light of a miserable candle that Todd had burning in the dark closed shop, he glared at Johanna. "Well, well," he said. "A good night's rest, Charlie?" "Tolerable, sir." "Humph, ha! And did you find a place to sleep at cheaply and decently, my good lad, eh?" "I was very fortunate truly, sir." "Oh, you were very fortunate truly?" "Yes, sir. I am, through being country bred I suppose, fond of fruit, so when I left you last night, I bought an apple at a shop opposite." "Oh, at Mr. A. I don't know the name, sir," said Johanna, "but I can run out and ascertain, I dare say." Todd gave a low sort of growl. He did not know if he were being foiled by innocence or by R. With an impatient gesture, he added, "Never mind the apples. I wish to know where you slept, Charlie, that I may judge if it was a proper place. There are so many wicked people in London." "Are there, sir? Bah! Go on. Where did you sleep?" "Well, sir, as there was a kind-tempered looking servant in the fruiter's shop, I thought she may be able to tell me of some place where I could lodge, and when she had heard my story—" Story? What story?" "How destitute I was, sir, and how kind you had been to employ me without a character, and how happy and contented I was in your service, sir. So when she had heard all that, she said, 'It is too late for you to go lodging hunting tonight. There is an old bench in our kitchen, and if you like you may sleep on that.'" Todd gave a growl. "And so you slept there?" "Yes, sir." He paced the shop for some few moments in deep thought, knitting his brows and trying to make something out of what he had heard, contrary to what it seemed. But Johanna's story was too straightforward and simple for him to find any flaw in it, and after a few moments he felt compelled to admit to himself that it must be the truth. Turning to her with something of the amount of amiability one may expect from a bear, he said, "Open the shop." "Yes, sir, directly." Johanna propped the door wide open, and then having, by the dim light of the miserable candle, found a screw which fastened a bar across the shutters, she speedily released it, and then went into the street. At that moment Crotchet came along, whistling in so thoroughly careless a manner that evening Johanna thought he had forgotten his instructions and was about to pass the shop. She had her hand upon the bar when he stopped, saying, in an off-handed manner, "Why, little un, them before shutters is too much for you. I'll give you a helping hand. Lor bless you, don't say anything about it. It ain't no sort o' trouble to me, my little chap. Here goes." Mr. Crotchet began opening Todd's shop with such a fury and a vengeance that the clatter and the speed with which the operation was being accomplished brought Todd out of the parlor to see what on earth Charlie was about. When he saw Crotchet coming in with 3 shutters in his arms at once, he could scarcely believe his eyes, and he roared out, "What's this? Who are you?" "Easy, easy," said Crotchet. Don't get in the way, old gentleman. Easy, there now. Crotchet managed to give Todd such a rap on the side of the head with the shutters that 1,000 lights danced in his eyes and he writhed with pain. Well, I never, said Crotchet. I hope I haven't hurt you, old man. You see I was a passing, and seed as these here shutters was rather a bit top heavy for your little son here, and I thought I'd give him a helping hand. To be sure he didn't want me to, but you see I would, and perhaps as your old head is getting better, you wouldn't mind a pint of beer, old gentleman. You atrocious villain, yelled Todd. I'll cut your throat. I'll polish you off. Would you like to be shaved? I've had a scrape already, said Crotchet, and if you won't stand the beer, why you won't, and there's no bones broke arter all. Good morning, old Grampus. Chapter XCI. Mr. Todd's first customers. Todd seized Johanna by the arm and dragged her into the shop. He locked the door, and then confronting her, he said how kind it was of your friend to take down the shutters for you. Charlie Green. My friend, sir. Yes, your friend who declined being shaved, you know, because you told him last night that he had better go to some other shop. Really, sir, said Johanna, I don't know what you mean. Come, Charlie, confess that you do know someone in London, as well as you know me. Confess, now, that people are so fond of interfering in other folks' affairs, that you have been set on to watch me. I shall not be at all angry. Truly, I shall not, I assure you. Not the least. Only tell me the truth. That is all I ask of you, my boy, and you will find that it is no bad thing to make a friend of Sweeney Todd. If I had, sir, anything to confess, replied Johanna, except that at times I do feel that I wish I had not run away from my mother-in-law at Oxford, I should soon tell it all to you. And so that is all, Charlie, all at present, sir. What a good lad! What an exemplary lad! Light the shop fire, if you please, Charlie. Humph, I am wrong, muttered Todd to himself, but yet I will cut his throat before I leave tonight. It will be safer and more satisfactory to do so, and besides, he has given me some uneasiness, and I hate him for his quiet, gentle ways. I hate everybody. I would cut the throats of all the world if I could. Light the fire quickly, you young hound, will you? Johanna trembled. She felt that anything but a blow from Todd she could put up with, but in her pocket she kept a jagged piece of flint stone, which would go through the window in a moment, and she felt that through she must throw it, if he only so much as raised his hand against her. The fire blazed up, and Todd at that moment had no further excuse for abusing Charlie. With a sulky growl, he said, You can call me out if any one comes, and then he retired to his back parlor, closing and locking the door as usual. The morning felt rather raw, and Johanna was glad to warm her hands at the fire in the shop, which soon burnt brightly, but she did not venture upon keeping up a bright blaze for long. Todd's mode of managing the fire was always to keep a dry turf smoldering upon the top of it, from which ample heat enough was emitted to keep the shaving pot upon the simmer. She now placed upon the fire one of those turfs, a small pile of which were always ready in the corner of the shop. She had scarcely done so when the shop door opened and a man walked in. Is Mr. Todd in, my little man? He said. Yes, sir. Do you wish to see him? Johanna wished, if it were possible, to discourage visitors, but the man sat down at once in the shaving chair and placed his hat upon the floor, adding as he did so, Yes, a right down good shave I want, as good as if sent. Dunstan himself wanted one. The manner in which the man pronounced the word sent Dunstan was so marked that Johanna felt convinced at once he was a friend, and she felt quite a gush of pleasure at the thought that Sir Richard Blunt had such a continual supervising eye upon her safety. She felt that she must not look at this man otherwise than as a stranger. She felt that the least word of recognition may be fatal both to him and to her. She knew that Todd had some small orifice through which from his parlor he peeped into the shop, and that his eye was now upon her she did not doubt. I will call Mr. Todd, sir, she said in a moment. He is close at hand. Thank you, replied the man. I sit here as comfortable as St. Dunstan. Yes, said Johanna, as she heard the watchword of safety and friendship once more uttered by that man who was in truth one of Sir Richard's most confidential and trustworthy officers. She at once now proceeded to the door of the parlor and tapped at it until Todd opened it and popped his head out with a grim smile. "Oh, Charlie, my dear," he said, "does a gentleman want me?" "Yes, sir." "Ahem. Good morning, sir," added Todd as he advanced, tying on his apron. "A shave, I presume, sir?" "A close shave, sir. I do think of all the luxuries in life, sir. A good close shave, what I call a regular polish off, sir, is one of the greatest in a small way. Charlie, ain't it near breakfast time, my good lad?" "Yes, sir," said Johanna. "I dare say it is." "Very good. The hot water. Thank you, my dear. You will take 2 pence from the till, Charlie, and get yourself somewhere about the market, eh? Well now." A thin man in a cloak made his appearance at the door of the shop, and taking off his hat, made a bow, as he said, "I believe I have the pleasure of speaking to the pious Mr. Todd." "My name is Todd, sir. What is it?" "I am truly delighted," said the tall thin man, sitting down upon the nearest seat and placing his hat upon his knees. "I am truly delighted to see you. Pray go on shaving that gentleman, as I shall be some time." "Some time about what?" almost screamed Todd, finding the tract, from which I purpose reading to you a few extracts upon the all-important subject of the election of grace and the insufficiency of works. Todd stropped a razor and glared at the intruder, who, fitting on his nose with great precision a pair of blue spectacles, began rummaging in his hat. "Humph, this is it. No, this is not it. Well, I thought I had it here, and so I have. This is an imaginary and highly religious discourse upon saints and St. Dunstan in particular." Johanna knew in a moment that this other man was a friend likewise. He, too, had pronounced the word St. Dunstan in a peculiar manner. Todd suddenly became quite calm. "Sir," he said, "I take it as a very particular favor, truly, that you should have called here upon such an errand, and I only beg that you will not hurry yourself in the least. I can go on shaving this gentleman, and perhaps when he is gone you will permit me the honor of operating upon you?" "With great pleasure," replied the man. "Dear me, where can the tract be? Is this it?" "No, this is about the pious milkmaid who always put up a prayer for the milking pail to prevent the cow from kicking it over." "Dear me, where can it be? Oh, is this it?" "No, this is the story of the pious barber's boy who, when he had an opportunity, went over the way and found his father there." "Dear me, where can it be?" Johanna started. The barber's boy, she thought, who went over the way and found his father there. Those words are for me. She was now in quite a fever of anxiety to leave the shop, for she did not doubt but that by some means her father had heard of her position, and she felt that then nothing but the actual sight of her in perfect health and safety would satisfy him. But she dared not show the anxiety she felt. She bent over the fire and affected to be stirring the turf. "You can go and get your breakfast, Charlie," said Todd. "Thank you, sir." Johanna would not betray any haste, but she shook with agitation as she neared the door, and then she recollected that she had not taken the 2 pence from the till as she had been told to do, and that the circumstance of not doing so may create suspicion. She crept back and possessed herself of the pence. Todd watched her with the eyes of a demon. "Are you going, my dear Charlie?" he said. "Yes, sir." She left the shop, and then her first impulse would have induced her to hurry over the road to the fruiter's shop, but her eyes fell upon the figure of Sir Richard Blunt standing in the fruiter's doorway. He moved his hand signifying that she should go towards the market, and she did so. He quickly followed her. She did not look behind her until she was quite in the Old Fleet Market, and then, just as she looked round, Sir Richard Blunt touched her arm. "You understood my message?" he said. "Yes, my father. Exactly. It is concerning him. It appears that some busybody, A man I understand named Lupin has seen you in your present disguise and informed him of it. I know the man. He is one of those saintly hypocrites who make religion the cloak for their vices. Yes, there are not a few of them, said Sir Richard. They revel in vice, and daily try to make the Almighty an accomplice in their offenses against society. Well, then, Johanna, this man has tortured your father with an account of your being in this disguise. It would torture him, naturally, without he knew all the reasons for it. But it appears that he went to the house of Miss Wilmot, and after some trouble saw her, when she, finding that he knew quite enough to make him wretched, and not enough to explain your position, frankly told him all, and brought him to me. It was the best, most decidedly it was, and I need only say that he is anxiously waiting to see you, at our friend the fruiter's house. But as it would not do for you to go direct from Todd's door to there, I have intercepted you, you see, to take you by a safer route. How good and kind and considerate you are to me, said Johanna, as she looked up in the face of the magistrate, while tears started to her eyes. Without you, how miserably I must have failed in this adventure. Todd would no doubt before this have discovered me and taken my life. Don't say a word about that, replied Sir Richard. Recollect that after all it was my duty to protect you, and if I have been a little more anxious than usual in the performance of that duty, it is because I admire your heroic constancy and courage, and hope to see you happy yet. Alas, the sun of my happiness has set forever. I can only now pray to heaven that it will endow me with patience to bear its decrees with serenity. Well, added Sir Richard, we will say no more upon that subject just now. Come with me, and I will take you to your father by a safer way than just crossing the road from Todd's shop to the fruiterer's. He led her down a court in Bridge Street, and from there through a complete labyrinth of passages, some of which still exist at the back of Fleet Street, and some of which have been swept away, until they reached a door in a dingy-looking wall, at which he paused. This is the back of the fruiter's house, he said, and I dare say someone is waiting for me. He tapped 3 times distinctly at the door, and then it was opened immediately by the fruiter's daughter, who with a smile clasped Johanna in her arms. Welcome, she said. Welcome once again. Ah, my dear friend, said Johanna, I shall learn to bless the circumstances, commencing in affliction as they did, that have brought me acquainted with such kind hearts. They all 3 now crossed a little paved yard, and were soon in the fruiter's house. Where is my dear father? Said Johanna. Where is he? This way, said the young girl, who took so great an interest in the fate of Johanna. This way, dear. He is in our room upstairs, and will be no less delighted to see you than you will be delighted to see him. I am sure of that, said Johanna. Chapter XI. Mr. Oakley's anxieties much diminish. For some few moments after this meeting, neither Mr. Oakley nor Johanna could speak. At length the old spectacle maker was just able to say, Great God, I thank you, that once again I hold my darling to my heart. Father, father, said Johanna, did you think for one moment that I could have left you? No, my dear, no, but I was bewildered by all I heard. I was half mad, I think, until I was told all, and now we will go home, my pretty darling, at once, and we will have no secrets from each other. Dear heart, what a pretty boy you make, to be sure. But come, come, I am in an agony until I have you home again. Father, listen to me. Yes, my child, my darling. Yes, if it had not been for Sir Richard Blunt I should now have been with the dead, and you and I would never have met again, but in another world. Father, I owe him, therefore, you will say, some gratitude. Some gratitude, my darling? We owe him a world of gratitude. Alas, we shall never be able to repay him, but we will pray that he may be as happy as his noble heart deserves, my dear. God bless him. And, Father, we will do any little thing he asks of us. We will fly to obey his commands, my dear, in all things. Night or day, he will only have to speak to us, and what he says shall be our law. Then, Father, he asks of me, for the cause of public justice, that I should go back to Todd's and wear this dress for the remainder only of today. Can we refuse him? Alas, alas, said the old man, more trouble, more anxiety, more danger. No, father, no danger. He will watch over me, and I have faith that heaven is with me. Can I part with you again? Yes, for such an object. Do not, father, say no to me, for you may say, and I will obey you. But with your own free consent, let me go now, and do the bidding of the great and the good man who has saved me to once more rest upon your breast, and kiss your cheek. The old man shook for a moment, and then he said, Go, go, my child, go, and take with you my blessing, and the blessing of God, for surely that must be yours. But oh, be careful, remember, my darling, that upon your safety hangs my life, for if I were to hear that anything had happened to you, it would kill me. I have nothing now but you in the world to live for. Oh, father, you do not mean to tell me that my mother is no more. No, my dear, no. Ask me nothing now. You shall know all at another time. Only tell me when I shall see you again. At sunset, said Sir Richard Blunt as he stepped into the room at this moment. At sunset, I hope, Mr. Oakley, and in the meantime be assured of her perfect safety. I offer my life as security for hers, and would not hesitate to sacrifice it for her. The manner of the magistrate was such that no one could for one moment doubt that he spoke the genuine sentiments at his heart, and such words, coming from such a quarter, it may be well supposed were calculated to produce a great impression. I am satisfied, said Mr. Oakley. I should be more than an unreasonable man if I were not fully convinced now of the safety of Johanna. When she had got her father to say this much, Johanna was anxious to be off, and she signified as much to Sir Richard Blunt, who fully acquiesced in the propriety of the measure, for already her absence had been quite long enough from the shop, and Todd may not be in the best of humours at her return. After one more embrace, Johanna tore herself from her father's arms, and followed the magistrate from the fruiter's house, by the same route which had conducted her to it. On their way, he explained to her some little matters of which she was in ignorance, or at least concerning which she could only conjecture. Both the persons whom you left in Todd's shop, he said, belonged to my force, and the one only went for the protection of the other, as I, of course, surmised that you would be at once sent out of the way upon some real or mock errand, to give Todd opportunity of committing a murder. My great object is to find out precisely how he does the deed, and the man who came in to be shaved was to make what observations of the place he could during the ceremony, while the other distracted Todd's attention. I understand, said Johanna. I of course knew that they were friends when they mentioned the watchword of St. Dunstan to me. Exactly. I gave them instructions to seize the very first opportunity of letting you hear the watchword. Are there any large cupboards in the shop? Yes, there is one of great size. Would it, do you think, hold 2 men? Oh, yes. Perhaps you, who are tall, may have to stoop a little, but with that exception as to height, there is most ample space. That will do then. I cannot tell you, of course, the exact hour, but be it when it may, the moment Todd leaves the shop today to go upon any business out of doors, 2 persons from me will come to hide themselves in that cupboard. They will use the watchword. Yes, certainly, and you will so dispose any movable article in the shop as to take away any idea that the cupboard had been visited or in the slightest degree interfered with. That I can easily do. Well, here we are, then, in Fleet Street again, and mind all this that I have planned has nothing to do with your proceedings to call for assistance, if any special or unforeseen danger should occur to you. Johanna, upon this, showed him the jagged stone she had in her pocket, to cast through the window. Yes, that would do, said Sir Richard, but I would gladly supply you with arms. Do you think you could manage a pistol, if you had one? Yes, I have often looked at some firearms that my father had in his shop to sell once, and I have seen them used. I am glad of that, continued Sir Richard. Here are 2 very small pistols loaded. They may be thoroughly depended upon in a room, but they would not carry any distance, in consequence of the shortness of the barrel. If, however, you should be in any sudden and extreme danger from Todd, anywhere else than in the shop, or there, if you are pushed for time, one of these fired in his face will be tolerably effective. You can keep them both in your pocket. The magistrate, as he spoke, handed to Johanna a pair of very small but exquisitely made pistols encircled with silver mounting, and she carefully concealed them, feeling still more secure from any treachery upon the part of Todd, now that she held his life as much, if not more, in her hands than he held hers in his. Sir Richard gives Johanna pistols for her protection. Sir Richard gives Johanna pistols for her protection. She shook her kind friend warmly by the hand and then hastened to the barber's shop. As she got near to it, she saw the tall thin man who had so perplexed Todd about the religious tract come out, and Todd followed him to the door, looking after him with such an expression of deadly malice that Johanna could not but pause a moment to look at him. He suddenly turned his eyes towards her, and saw her. He beckoned with his finger, and she entered the shop. "Well, Charlie," he said, with quite an affectation of good humor, "you are a good lad." "I am glad you think so, sir," she replied, seeing that Todd paused for an answer. "I cannot but think so. I shall have to look over some accounts in the parlor this morning, and if anybody, any female, I mean, comes for me, say I have gone to the city, and that, after that, I said I would call in Bell Yard before I came home. You well remember that, Bell Yard. Be vigilant and discreet, and you shall have the reward that I have all along intended for you, and which you should not miss upon any account. I am much beholden to you, sir. But if any one should come to be shaved while you are in the parlor, what shall I say to them? You can say I have gone to the temple to dress Mr. Block's new wig, if you like, so that you got rid of them, for I must not be disturbed on any consideration." "Very well, sir. Put another turf on the fire, Charlie, and make yourself quite comfortable." What inconsistent amenity this was upon the part of Todd! It seemed as though he had turned over a new leaf completely, and intended to put an end to all suspicions, if he had any, of Charlie Green. And after that, Todd still preserved his kind intention of cutting his throat with one of the razors. "The very best thing you can do with people," muttered Todd to himself, as he went into the parlor, "is to cut their throats as soon as they cease to be useful to you, for from that moment, if you do not put them out of the way, they are almost certain to be mischievous to you." What a pleasant lot of maxims Todd had, and what a beautiful system of moral philosophy his was, to be sure. One thing was quite evident, and that was that he fully expected and dreaded the visit of Mrs. Lovett upon money matters. It will be recollected that 10 o'clock was named as about the hour when that lady was to bring in her little account in the partnership affair of Todd, Lovett, and Co., and as Todd had for once in his life been fairly bothered to make any further excuses to so pertinacious a creditor as Mrs. Lovett, he had hit upon the plan of trying to put her off during the day by one means or another, and at night he would, at an earlier hour than he had before intended, be off and away. Everything was in readiness, and he considered Mrs. Lovett his only hindrance, a danger he scarcely thought her, for, at the very worst, he could not conceive that evening her passion would be sufficient to induce her to sacrifice herself for the sake of revenge upon him. His house was prepared so that a match would at any moment suffice to give the touch that would set it in a blaze, and then, as he said, who shall say where the conflagration among the old well-dried wooden houses of Fleet Street may reach to? His passage in the Hamburg ship was secure. The fearful proceeds of his life of rapine and murder were in her hold. How uncommonly safe Todd thought himself, and how well he considered he had managed his affairs. Short-sighted mortals that we are! How often we mistake the shifting morass of difficulty for the terra firma of prosperity, and how often do we weep for those events, which, in themselves and their results, form the groundwork of the happiness of a life. Truly we are such things as air is made of. If Todd now for one moment could have imagined that his plunder, which he believed was so safe on board the Hamburg ship, was actually, on the contrary, at the office of Sir Richard Blunt in Craven Street, what would have been his sensations? Would he have laughed and sniggered over the bumper of brandy he was holding to his lips in his parlor? No, truly, if he could but have guessed that the ship in which he had intended to embark was then 24 hours on her route, and battling with the surging waves of the German Ocean, how would he have felt? Strange to say, he never had felt so confident of success and triumph as upon that day. He could have said with Romeo in Mantua, "My bosom's lord sits lightly on its throne," while, like Romeo, he was on the eve of a blow that at once was to topple to the dust the very structure of all his hopes. He of course fully expected a visit from Mrs. Lovett, but he did hope that she would take an answer from Charlie and go away again. Chapter XAI Sir Richard Blunt's Subterranean Expedition. While Todd is thus waiting anxiously for the arrival of his old ally in iniquity, but who now he considered to be his most deadly foe, and his worst possible hindrance to carry out his deeply, by far too deeply, laid schemes, we shall have time to take a peep at some proceedings of Sir Richard Blunt's, which are rather entertaining, and decidedly important. Johanna had not been long gone from the fruiter's shop before Sir Richard said to the fruiter, "If you are ready, we will go now to the church at once. I have left quite a sufficient guard over the safety of Miss Oakley, and besides this affair will not take us, I dare say, above a couple of hours." "Not so long, I think," replied the fruiter. "I am quite ready, and no doubt your men are in the church by this time. They are apt to be punctual." "They would not suit me for long if they were not," replied Sir Richard. "Punctuality is the one grand principle which is the hinge of all my business, and the secret of by far the larger portion of my success." They walked rapidly up Fleet Street together until they came opposite to St. Dunstan's church, and then they crossed the road and tapped lightly at a little wicket in the great door of the building. The wicket was immediately opened by a man who touched his hat to Sir Richard. "All right?" asked the magistrate, "and every one here?" "Yes, sir, every one." "That will do then. Be sure you fasten the door in the inside, so that that troublesome beadle, if he should be smitten with a desire to visit the church, cannot get in, and if he should come and be troublesome, take him into custody at once, and shut him up anywhere that may keep him out of harm's way for the next 12 hours or so." "Yes, sir." This man, whose business it evidently was to stay by the door, carefully fastened it, and Sir Richard Blunt with his friend from Fleet Street advanced into the body of the church. He had not gone far before a pew opened, and 6 persons came out. One of these was a well-dressed elderly man, who said, as the magistrate approached him, "I have made all the necessary observations, Sir Richard, and am quite easy and confident that I can direct your men how to excavate directly to Todd's house." "Thank you, Sir Christopher," said the magistrate. "I am very much indebted to you for the trouble you have taken in this affair, which I think is now near its climax." "I hope so, Sir Richard." "This way, if you please." The whole party now proceeded to the same slab of stone, which the magistrate had before removed, for the purpose of making his inquiries below the surface of the earth. The slab was standing on its edge against a column of the nearest aisle, and the deep dark opening to the vaults was before them. "There is but little foul air," said Sir Christopher. "The stone has been off, they tell me, many hours. Shall I go first, or will you, Sir Richard?" "Allow me," said the magistrate. "Should there be any risks, it is my duty first to encounter them." "As you please, Sir Richard." "As you please, sir. I willingly give place to you, because I know, if there be any difficulty, how much better calculated you are than any one here to overcome it." The magistrate made a slight bow to the compliment, and then taking a link in his hand, he descended the stairs leading to the vaults of St. Dunstan's. It will be well recollected that he had been in those vaults before, and that he had made certain discoveries, which to a vast extent implicated Mrs. Lovett in the crimes of Sweeney Todd, but his object upon this present visit was of a different character. In plain language, this was an attempt to ascertain if there were any underground modes of communication between Todd's house and the vaults of old St. Dunstan's church. That there were some such subterraneous passages had become, after the most mature consideration, a firm conviction upon the mind of Sir Richard Blunt, and therefore he had resolved upon such an exploration of the spot as should confirm or dispel the idea forever. Those whom he had with him were all persons upon whom he could thoroughly depend, and the ancient architect who had given his services was to point out the exact direction in which to proceed. Upon reaching the foot of the stone steps, instead of traversing the passage that led in the direction of Belliard, which he had formerly done, Sir Richard turned directly the other way, saying as he did so, "This, I presume, will be our direction?" "We shall see in a moment," said the architect. "I have taken the bearings so exactly that I can point out to you the precise course." He forced into the ground to a sufficient depth to make it stand steady his walking stick, and then removing a little gold cap from the top of it, he disclosed a small compass, which after some oscillations steadied itself. "Then," said Sir Christopher, "through that wall would lead in a direct line to Todd's house." "This will assist us," said Sir Richard. "We will, before we actually begin excavating, endeavor to find some of the vaults which may run in that direction, and so perhaps save ourselves an immense amount of labor." "Very good," said Sir Christopher Wren. "I can at any time give you, from any place, the exact bearing of Todd's house, for I have it fixed in my mind and can read it off from the compass plate in a moment." They now at once made their way into the vaults, and by dint of keeping to the right hand, they avoided going much out of their course. These vaults were of great extent, and although some of them, owing to being full of the dead, had been bricked up, yet they were very easily opened, and in many cases a direct thoroughfare for considerable distances was effected. Ever and soon the compass was appealed to and showed them that they were approaching Todd's house. One of the party, a well-dressed, gentleman-looking man, now stepped forward and said to Sir Richard, "Here, according to the plans of the church, the vaults end." "Then we can get no further?" "Not an inch, Sir Richard." "Then here commences in reality our mission, which is to try to discover some communication between the lower part of the house occupied by Sweeney Todd and these vaults. Let us each use our utmost discrimination to effect that object." He lighted for himself a small lantern, and commenced a rigorous search of the walls, but for some few minutes could find nothing to excite the least suspicion. At length he paused at one portion of one of the vaults, where a kind of wooden tomb had been erected close to the wall. A large piece of dirty oak was placed upright against the earthwork. "If there be any mode of leaving this vault but the one we have entered," he said, "it is here." At these words, so significant as they were of some discovery having been made by Sir Richard, all those who were with him made their way to that spot, and from their several lanterns, a glare of light was thrown upon the wooden monument. "This," said the person who had before spoken of the plan of the vaults, "this is the monument of a Sir Giles horseman who was killed by accident and interred here about 22 years ago." It was a very unusual thing to make any such erection in a vault, but his widow wished it, and the authorities saw no good reason for interfering. The monument had evidently consisted of an oaken kind of square ornamental tomb affixed to the wall, and extending out about 6 feet into the vault. That portion of it which did so extend into the vault had fallen in, but the piece of oak which had been originally affixed to the wall there remained. "What leads you to suppose, Sir Richard," said the architect, "that this place will show us anything?" "This," said the magistrate, as he picked up from amid the rubbish of the broken monument a nearly new glove of thick leather. "How did this get here?" The glove was passed from hand to hand and duly examined. No one owned it, and the only remark that could be made upon it was, that it was of an immense size. "Then," said Sir Richard Blunt, "since it belongs to none of us, I give it as my opinion that it belongs to Sweeney Todd, and has fallen from his hand in this place." "It must be so," said the fruiterer. "I know of no hand in the city of London that such a glove would fit but his." "But how came he here?" said Sir Christopher. "That is the question. How could he get here?" "We shall see," said the magistrate. "Lend me that small iron crowbar, Jenkins." The crowbar was handed to Sir Richard Blunt, and at one touch with it down come the piece of oak that was against the wall. That was conclusive, for, instead of the solid wall beyond it, There was a deep crevice or opening just sufficient to enable one person to go through it. "This is the place," said the magistrate. There was a death-like silence among all present. Every ear was on the stretch, and every eye was fixed upon the narrow opening in the wall of the vault. It would almost seem as though everyone expected Sweeney Todd to appear with one of his victims on his back, that he had just, to use his own expressive phraseology, succeeded in polishing off. Sir Christopher stuck up his compass again, and it was his voice that first broke the stillness. "The route is direct," he said. "To Todd's house?" asked Sir Richard. "Yes, direct." "Then all we have got to do is to follow it. It is an enterprise perhaps attended with some danger, and certainly with much horror, I think. Now, I do not ask any one to follow me, but go I will." "I will follow you, Sir Richard," said the fruiter. "I reside in Fleet Street, and rather than not ferret out such a villain as Todd from the neighborhood, I would run any risks." "I am with you, sir." "And I," said Sir Christopher Wren. And I," cried every one. "Come on," said the magistrate. "Come on. I will take the small lantern, and if I meet Todd, my great aim will be to take him a prisoner, not to kill him. And mind all of you, if by any chance a scuffle with that man should ensue, it would be a scandalous cheating of the gallows to do him any injury that may evening delay his execution. Now, come on." It required no small amount of real courage to lead the way in that expedition into the very bowels of the earth, as it were. But with the small lantern elevated as far above his head as the roof of the passage would admit of, Sir Richard stepped cautiously and slowly on. The excavation in which they were was roughly, but well made. At intervals of about 12 feet each, there always occurred two upright pieces of plank supporting a third piece on the roof, and firmly wedged in, so that there was but little likelihood of a fall of earth from above. Suddenly a scuffling noise was heard, and Sir Richard for a moment paused. "What is it?" said the fruiter. "Only some rats," he replied. "I dare say there are plenty of such gentlemen in this quarter of the world, and probably they never saw so large a party here before. They are scudding along in a regiment here." After going on for about 20 paces further, Sir Richard found a door completely blocking up the passage. By dint of careful investigation of it, he found it was locked, and the key in the other side of the lock. He pushed it through with some difficulty, and then, with a skeleton key, opened the door in the course of a few moments. "Come on," he said. "Ah, this is a different place." They now found themselves in some regularly constructed vaults, arched with stone, down the sides of which there rolled long streams of moisture. Chapter X Civ. In the vaults. "Who on earth would have thought of vaults like these in such a situation?" said the fruiter. "They are," said Sir Christopher, "undoubtedly the remains of some public building, which probably at a very distant date has occupied the site above. They are well built, and really of considerable architectural beauty in some respects. I am quite pleased at the opportunity of seeing such a place. It looks," remarked the magistrate, "as though it had been long hidden from the world. It is such men as Sweeney Todd who find out more underground secrets in a month than we should in a lifetime. But I hope that we shall find out all his cleverness and most abhorrent iniquities now." The air in this stone place was by no means very bad, and truly, after the vaults, there was rather an agreeable damp kind of freshness in it, while it was evident, by the manner in which the lights burnt in it, that there was no want of vitality in its atmosphere. At first it was no easy matter to find any kind of outlet from the place. After some searching, however, another door was discovered, very similar, truly, to the one that Sir Richard Blunt had opened with the picklock, and that, too, was found to be locked on the other side, and the key, as in the former case, in the lock. "All this locking of doors," said the magistrate, "was, I have no sort of doubt, to protect himself from any night visit upon the part of Mrs. Lovett, from whom I feel certain that Sweeney Todd has been expecting attempts upon his life, as much as to my own knowledge he has made attempts upon hers, but by some kind of fatality, or providence, they seem to be unable to harm each other." "It is a providence," said Sir Christopher. They must both suffer the penalty of outraging, as they have done, the laws of God and man, and the retribution would be by no means complete were they to fall by the hands or each other. I think you are right, sir, said the fruiter. The door, which was now opened, only led to some other vaults, which somewhat resembled those the party had just left, only that they were by no means so lofty or so carefully constructed as they were, and before they had proceeded far, some evidences of habitation began to show themselves. Some old boots occupied a place in one corner, and some old hats, and other articles of clothing, were lying in a confused heap in another. Sir Richard Blunt looked upon all this as ample testimony that he was quite close to the abode of Sweeney Todd, and he accordingly turned to his friends, saying, "It is necessary that we proceed with the utmost caution. I think a very few steps will take us into the cellars of Todd's house, and the object now is not by any means to give him the least alarm, but merely to find out, if possible, by what means he murders and disposes of his victims." Acting upon this caution, they extinguished all the lights, with the exception of one lantern, and that Sir Richard Blunt himself carried, as he still continued to head the expedition. Suddenly he came upon an arched doorway without a door, and hardly had he proceeded a few paces, when he saw something lying in a strange confused mass upon the floor, which, upon a closer examination, proved to be a dead body. The reader will probably in this body see the spy who had been employed by Mrs. Lovett to see that Todd did not run away in the course of the preceding night. The body found under Todd's house. The body found under Todd's house. The body was lying upon some stones that seemed to have been placed one upon another in such a position that their most jagged corners and uneven surfaces should be uppermost. A glance at the roof showed a square, black-looking hole. Sir Richard Blunt was upon the point of saying something, when overhead they heard the distinct tramp of a man. The magistrate immediately placed his finger upon his lips, and all was as still as the grave in that place. Soon they heard a voice, and they all knew that it was the voice of Sweeney Todd. It came from above, and reached their ears with sufficient clearness to enable them to catch the words, "Her death is certain if I can but get her to cross the threshold of this parlor." Then the pacing to and fro of that really wretched man continued. The few words that Todd had spoken had been sufficient to convince Sir Richard Blunt of one thing, which was that they were beneath the parlor and not the shop. It was from the shop the people disappeared, so the heart of Todd's mystery remained yet to be reached. There was another small doorway a little to the left of where he stood, and Sir Richard, upon the impulse of the moment, passed through it alone. He came back again in a moment. "Gentlemen," he whispered, "have we seen enough?" They nodded, and without another word, he led the way back again from the dreary subterranean abode of murder. It was only to the fruiter he whispered, after they had gotten some distance from the spot upon which the dead body lay, "I know all." "Truly?" "Yes. When we get back to your home, I will tell you. Let for the meantime the general impression be that all there was to learn consisted of the secret of that square hole in the flooring of the parlor." "Yes, yes, but there is more, much more. You and Sir Christopher at present, I think, are the only two persons I shall be communicative with. The whole world will know it all, soon enough, but long and old habits of caution always induce me to keep my information as quiet as I possibly can." "You are quite right, Sir Richard. Evening I shall feel it to be no offense if you keep entirely to yourself what you have seen." "No, no, I wish to avail myself of your advice, which has done me good service upon more than one occasion, so when we get to your house, we will talk the matter fully over." By this time they had got so far from the immediate vicinity of Todd's house that such excessive caution in conversing was no longer necessary, and the magistrate, pausing, made a general remark to all. "The less that is said about what we have seen here, the better it will be. Let me beg of everyone not to give the smallest hint to any one, evening in the most confidential manner, of the discoveries that have been made here today." An immediate assent was of course given to this proposition, and in the course of 5 minutes they were all in St. Dunstan's church. It was something amusing to Sir Richard, at that moment, to notice the look of relief there was upon every countenance, now that the investigation into that underground and unknown region was over. Each person seemed as if he had just escaped from the toils and hazards of a battle. By a glance at his watch, Sir Richard ascertained that only 1 hour and a quarter had been consumed in the whole affair, and he was pleased to think how soon again he should be personally superintending the safety of Johanna. Before, however, the party got halfway to the door of the church, they heard a vociferous argumentation going on in that quarter, and the voice of the beadle, who was well known to Sir Richard, was heard exclaiming, "I will come in. I'm the beadle. Fire! Fire! I will come in." What? Keep a beadle out of his own church? Oh, 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 convulsions, convulsions. It ain't possible. Gentlemen, said the magistrate, we must repress our friend the beadle's curiosity. Let us all say hush to him as we go out, and not another word. This was generally understood, and they walked slowly in a kind of procession to the church door. Pitchforks and hatchets, cried the beadle. I will come in. Dust to dust, and ashes to ashes. Look at my hat and coat. I ain't a impostor, but a real beadle. Bless us, who is here? Why, there ain't no service nor a wedding. What a lot of folks. Have they been a grabbing of the communion plate? Oh, murder, convulsions, and thieves. Sir Richard went close up to him, and in the most mysterious way in the world, whispered in his ear, "Hush." "Eh?" said the beadle. Sir Christopher took hold of him by the collar of the coat, and said, "Hush." Well, but, the fruiterer beckoned to him with great gravity, and when he come forward a pace or two, said, "Hush." But good gracious, what am I to hush about? What is it all? What does it mean? Tell us, for goodness gracious sake. I don't know anything. I'm an ass, an idiot. What am I to hush about? I shall sit upon no end of thorns and nettles, till I know. What is it? Hush, 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 said every one as he passed the now nearly distracted beadle, and finally there he was left in the church porch with nothing in the shape of information. But hush. The man who had been left by the magistrate as a sentinel at the church door was the last to leave, and he took his cue from all the others, and when the beadle laid hold of him crying, "I'll take you up, I won't let you go," he gently sat him on the floor, and then saying, "Hush," away he went likewise. The large slab in the church, that usually covered up the passage leading to the vaults, was left uncovered, but then the beadle perfectly understood that that was for the sole purpose of relieving the vaults, during the week, of the accumulation of mephitic vapors supposed to be in them, and at all events no impulse of curiosity could be sufficiently strong in him to induce so desperate a step as a descent alone into those dreary abodes of the departed, so that he was, in a manner of speaking, compelled to put up entirely with "hush." For his portion of the mystery, Sir Richard bade good day to every one but the fruiterer at the door of the church, and then with him he walked to his shop opposite to Todd's. Crotchet was close at hand, and he came into the shop at a signal from the magistrate to do so. "Is all right, Crotchet?" "Right as a trivet, sir. Lord bless you, about so much as a sneeze, but I'll find it out. And as for little Miss Thingamabob, he shan't hurt a hair of her pretty little bit of a head." "That's right, Crotchet. Remember that the bringing to justice, with ample evidence of all his crimes, of Sweeney Todd, is a great object, but it is an infinitely greater one to preserve the life of Johanna Oakley." "I knows it," said Crotchet. "Resume your charge, then, Crotchet. All will be well, and this will be Todd's last day out of Newgate." Crotchet nodded, and made his exit. In the succeeding half-hour, it would seem that Sir Richard Blunt made his old acquaintance, the fruiterer, thoroughly acquainted with all he knew of the way in which Todd got rid of his victims. What that way will very shortly now appear, and we think it had better appear in this regular and most authentic narrative than in a chance conversation between Sir Richard Blunt and his friend. It was the special duty of one officer to come into the fruiterer's shop with a report and a description of whoever went into Todd's house, and now this man made his appearance. "Well, Jervis," said the magistrate, "so Todd has a customer, has he?" "I don't know, sir." It is a woman, well dressed and rather tall than otherwise. Mrs. Lovett, without a doubt. No one need go and look after that lady, for I don't know any one, except you or I, Jervis, who is so capable of taking care of number one. Todd will find her a troublesome customer, and if she is at all the woman I take her to be, she will not go into his back parlor quite so easily as he would fain persuade her. Then no one need follow, sir? No. But if the young lad comes out, you may just look in and ask some frivolous question to see what is going on. If the female is not in the shop, she is dead. Dead, sir. Yes, she will not live a minute after she leaves the shop, but you may depend she will not do so. She is to the full as well acquainted with Todd as we are, so there is no sort of apprehension of her coming to any harm. I should truly be sorry to lose her. Sir Richard Blunt was right in his guess. It was no other than Mrs. Chapter XCV. Mrs. Lovett is very intractable truly. Before entering the shop, Mrs. Lovett hovered about it, peeping at the things in the window, and glancing about her as though she had some uncomfortable ideas in her mind concerning the place, and was coquetting with her feelings a little before she could make up her mind to go into it. At length she laid her hand upon the handle of the door and turned it. She stood upon the threshold, and her sharp glance at once comprehended that Todd was not there. Johanna advanced towards her and waited for her to speak. "Oh," she said, "is Mr. Todd in?" "No," said Johanna. "No, madam." Johanna did not think it worth while at that time to expose herself to the great danger of disobeying Todd's positive commands, to say he was not at home, merely upon a point of punctilious truth. Mrs. Lovett looked keenly at her. "So," she said, "he is out, is he?" "Yes, madam." "And you are Mr. Todd's boy?" The emphasis which Mrs. Lovett placed upon the word boy rather alarmed Johanna, and she was more terrified when Mrs. Lovett marched twice round her, as though she were performing some incantation, glaring at her all the while from top to toe. Whatever was Mrs. Lovett's opinion of Johanna, however, she magnanimously kept it to herself, but the young girl had a sort of perception that her suit had not escaped the keen and penetrating eyes of Mrs. Lovett. This conviction gave a great air of timidity to Johanna's manner in speaking to the bold bad woman who confronted her. "And so he is out," added Mrs. Lovett. "Yes, madam." "How long has he been gone?" "Only a short time." "Well, my principal business this day is to see Mr. Todd. I have made such arrangements at home that I can wait here the whole day if necessary, for see him I must, and see him I will. I had a sort of presentiment that he may be out, notwithstanding I have an appointment with him." With this Mrs. Lovett sat down and composed herself evidently for a long wait. She did not sit in the shaving chair though. Johanna thought that as she passed it, she rather shuddered, but that may have been a mere fancy upon the part of our young friend. Mrs. Lovett was not exactly of the shuddering order of human beings. "Did he say when he should return?" "No, madam." All these questions of Mrs. Lovett's were asked with a sneering kind of incredulity that was quite sufficient to show Johanna how completely she disbelieved the statement concerning the absence of Todd. That she would wait until Todd was perforce obliged to show himself, Johanna did not doubt. There was something about the pale face and compressed lips of Mrs. Lovett that at once bespoke such a determination, but should any scene of unusual violence ensue, Johanna made up her mind to rush from the shop, if near the door, and if not able to do that, to cast a missile through the window, which she knew would bring her immediate help. "How long have you been with Mr. Todd?" asked Mrs. Lovett of Johanna. "Only a few days, madam." "And what made you come?" "My necessities, madam. I was in want of a situation, and Mr. Todd wanted an errand boy." "Humph," said Mrs. Lovett. "This is very strange." She rested her head upon her hand for a few moments, and appeared to be lost in thought, and at times Johanna could see that she was keenly eyeing her. Truly, Johanna had never felt so thoroughly uncomfortable since she had been in Todd's shop, for she could not but feel that she was discovered. The only question was now whether, when she did see Todd, Mrs. Lovett would think it worth her while to speak of the affair at all. The probability, however, was that she was too much engrossed in the business that brought her there to pay more than a passing attention to a mystery which, to all appearance, could not in any way concern her. But Todd all this while was a prisoner in his own parlor, and it may easily be imagined how he chafed and fumed over such a state of things. If any convenient mode of taking the life of Mrs. Lovett had but presented itself to him, how gladly he would have embraced it. But none did, and after enduring the present state of affairs for about a quarter of an hour, he coolly opened the parlor door and walked into the shop as if nothing were amiss. Mrs. Lovett was not at all taken by surprise at this proceeding. She merely rose and took a step towards the door, as she said, in a cool, sarcastic tone, "I am glad you have come home." "Come home?" said Todd, with a well-acted look of surprise. "Come home? What do you mean, my dear madam?" "I am particularly glad to see you, and was particularly desirous to do so." "Truly?" "Yes, to be sure, really. Do you know, I told the lad here to deny me to anybody but you, and he made the slight mistake of denying you to me only. Is it possible? Can such things be? Oh, you careless rascal. Upon my word, some employers would pull your ears, that they would. I'm ashamed of you, that I am. Really, Mrs. Lovett, these boys are always annoying one in some way or another. But walk in, if you please, walk in, and we will soon settle our little affairs." "Excuse me," said Mrs. Lovett, "I prefer the shop, Mr. Todd." "You don't say so? You hear me say so, and you may know by this time that when I say anything, I mean it." "Of course, Mrs. Lovett, of course," said Todd. "I know you for a lady of infinite powers of mind, of great susceptibility, of feeling, of uncommon intellect and thrift. Please to step into the parlor, and I will settle with you at once, for I believe you call for a small trifle that you are entitled to from me, Mrs. Lovett." "I do call for what I am entitled to, and I will have it here. Charlie, just go to St. Dunstan's, my lad, and bring me word the exact time, and then you can do it all under one, you know. Just walk down Fleet Market and see if you can find any love apples, and if so, you can ask the price of them and let me know." "Yes, sir," said Johanna. In another moment she was gone. Mrs. Lovett took another step nearer to the door, and actually laid her hand upon it to prevent it closing thoroughly. She did not think that she would be safe if it were shut, and then addressing Todd, she said, "All disguise between you and I is useless now. Todd, give me my half of the money that has been earned by blood. It may have the curse of murder clinging to it, but I will have it. I say I will have it. Are you mad?" "Not yet, not yet, but I shall be, and then it will be time for you to beware of me." "Mrs. Lovett, Mrs. Lovett, is it not a melancholy thing that you and I, who may be said to be at war with all the world, should begin to quarrel with each other? If we are not true to one another, what can we expect from others? Have we not for so long carried on our snug little business in safety, merely because we were good friends?" "No, Todd, no, we never were friends, you know that as well as I do. It is a principle of human nature that those who are associated together for wicked purposes are never friends. You and I have not been exceptions to the rule. We hate each other, we always did and will, you know it." "Dear, dear," said Todd, lifting up his hands and approaching a step nearer to Mrs. Lovett. "This is afflicting, this is truly afflicting to hear such words from you, Mrs. Lovett. Keep off, I say." Another step, and I will at once into the street, and then to the passers-by scream out for public vengeance upon Todd the murderer. "Hush, hush, God of heaven, woman, what do you mean by speaking of murder in such a tone?" "I mean, Todd, what I say, and what I threaten I will do. Keep off, keep off. I will not have you another step nearer to me with that hangdog look." Moderate your tone, woman, said Todd, as he stamped upon the floor of the shop. Moderate your tone, woman, or you will destroy yourself and me. I care not. You care not? What do you mean by that? Have you gone mad in earnest? What do you mean by you care not? Has the scaffold any charms for you? It may have for once, with you for a companion on it, Sweeney Todd, but if I am desperate and reckless, you have yourself to thank for it. Well, you know that, Todd. I have toiled and sinned and murdered for what you have done the same, for gold. Gold was the god of my idolatry, and it was yours. We both seized the same idea. We both saw how gold alone was worshipped in the land. We saw how heaven was affected to be worshipped by all. But we found out that gold was the real divinity. We saw that it was for the lucre of gain that the priest clothed himself in the garments of his pretended ministry, and spake his mock prayers to the people. We saw that it was for gold only that the rulers of the land struggled and fought. We found that the love and the worship of gold was the true religion of all, and we sought to possess ourselves of the idol. Mad, cried Todd. No, I speak sanely enough now. I say, we found out that by the possession of gold in Christian, canting, religious, virtuous England, we should find many worshippers. We found out that thousands upon thousands would bend the knee to us on that account, and on that account only. If we were paragons of virtue, we may rot and starve, but if we were monsters of vice, if we had but gold and kept but by the side of the law, we should be kings, emperors upon the earth. Bah, cried Todd. Well, we took a royal road to our object. We murdered for it, Todd. You dipped your hands in gore, and I helped you. Yes, I do not deny that I helped you. Peace, woman. I will not hold my peace. The time has come for you to hear me, and I will make you do so. I will speak trumpet-tongued, and if you like not that word murder, I will shriek it in your ears. If you like not the word blood, I will on the housetops proclaim and tell the people that it is synonymous with Todd. Ha. Chapter XCVI. The boat on the river. Todd did shrink aghast. This wild vehemence of Mrs. Lovett's was something that he did not expect. Every word that she uttered filled him with alarm. He began really to think that she had gone mad, and that he may have everything to dread from her wild vehemence, and that probably he had gone too far in cheating her out of the result of her labors. Peace, he said. Peace, and you shall be satisfied. I will be satisfied. Well, of course you shall. But you cannot be if you destroy both yourself and me, which your present conduct threatens. I tell you I joined with you in murder for the love of gold, and I will have my recompense. Give me that which is mine own. I will have it, or I will drag you with me to the halter. Do you understand that, Sweeney Todd? I ask you, do you understand that? It is plain enough, said Todd. Then give me my gold for blood. Give it to me, and let me go. You are really so precipitate. Upon my word, Mrs. Lovett, you are quite an altered woman, that you are. I certainly never did expect to hear such language from you. Any one would think that you had an idea I meant to cheat you. Mrs. Lovett made an impatient gesture, but Todd continued, now, anything more repugnant to my feelings than that could not possibly be, I assure you, and I consider you fully entitled to GBP 2208's 3D, which is precisely your half of the proceeds of the little business. Give me the money. Now, do you suppose, Mrs. Lovett, that I am so green as to keep here in the house no less a sum than GBP 2208's 3D? You really must think I have taken leave of my senses, to dream for one moment of such a thing. Where is it, then? Where is it? I see you are bent upon driving me mad. Why, really, Mrs. It would be insulting you to say that you were perfectly in your right senses at this moment. But come, sit down, and we will see what can be done. Sit down and compose yourself. In the shaving chair. Ha, that's a good joke. In the shaving chair. Ha. No, Mrs. I don't exactly want to polish you off. Sit down where you like, but not in the shaving chair, if you don't fancy it, Mrs. L. Pray sit down. For you to cut my throat? What? I say, for you to cut my throat. Do you think I am not sharp-sighted enough to see that razor partially hidden in your sleeve? No, Todd, I am well aware that you are panting to murder me. I tell you I know it, and it is useless your making the faintest attempt to conceal it. The fact is broad and evident, but I am upon my guard, and I am armed likewise, Todd. Armed? Yes, Todd, I am armed, and you are terrified at the idea, as I knew you would be. Nothing to you is so horrible as death. You who have sent so many from the world, will yourself go from it howling with fright. I am armed, but I do not mean to tell you how. You are wrong, Mrs. Lovett. What on earth would be the use of my taking your life? You would have all then. All. What do I want with all? I am not a young man now, and all I wish is the means of enjoyment for the remainder of my days. That I can well command with a less sum than my half of that which we have to divide will come to. I have no one that I care to leave a sixpence to, and therefore what need I trouble myself to hoard? You are quite mistaken, Mrs. Lovett. Give me my money then. I will, of course, but I tell you it is at the bankers' messes. Grunt, Mac, Stickinton, and Fubbs. Yes, that is the name of the highly respectable firm in whose hands for the present both my money and yours is deposited, and from the high character of the house, I should say it could not possibly be in safer hands. My share will be quite safe with me, or if unsafe, you need not care. I will have it. Step into the parlor, and I will write you an order for your half, and you can get it in half an hour. No, Todd, you will make the attempt to murder me if I step into the parlor. I will not even come further into your shop than here upon the threshold of it, with the door in my hand. Why do you keep a razor concealed in your sleeve? Oh, it's a little habit of mine, but allow me to assure you how very incorrect your suspicions are, Mrs. Lovett, and if you will not come in, I will write the order and bring it to you. Or what do you say to my going with you to the bankers, where you can yourself ask what is the amount of the sum standing in my name there, and when you have ascertained it, you can have half of it to a sixpence. Come, then. I confess, Todd, I am sufficiently suspicious of you, that I would rather not lose sight of you. Dear me, how dreadful it is for friends to be in such a state of feeling towards each other, to be sure. But the time will come, Mrs. Lovett, when you will see my conduct in a different light, and you will smile at the suspicion which you say you now entertain, but which sometimes I cannot help thinking are not the genuine sentiments of your heart. Come, come, at once. I must wait for the boy. I cannot leave the shop until the boy is here to mind it in my absence. Oh, here he is. At this moment, Johanna, who had not troubled herself to go to the market at all, came back. Well, what is the exact time? Said Todd, Bysant. Dunstan's, 11:15, sir. How very satisfactory. I am only going a little way with this lady, and will soon be back. You can keep up the fire, Charlie, and in that corner you will find some religious tracts, which will I hope improve your mind. Above all things, my lad, never neglect your religious exercises. I hope you said your prayers last night, Charlie? I did, sir, said Johanna, and she said it with a look that added the query, did you say yours? Todd hesitated a moment, as though something were passing through his mind respecting Johanna, and then he muttered to himself, there is time enough yet. No doubt he had begun to entertain serious suspicions of Master Charlie, and in those few words was alluding to his intention of taking his life before the coming night. Now, my dear Mrs. Lovett, said Todd, as he put on his hat and pressed it down unusually over his brows, I am ready. And I, she said. Todd only glanced round the shop, to be certain that he had left everything as he wished it, and he tried the parlor door. Then he at once stalked into Fleet Street, followed by Mrs. Lovett. It will look better for you to take my arm, he said. I don't care how it looks, she replied. All I want is my money. Do not touch me, or you will see good cause shortly to me having done so. Go on and I will follow you, but if you attempt to escape me, I will raise the street in pursuit of you. by screaming out that you are Todd the Mer. Hush, hush, woman. Do you know where you are? Yes, in the street, but I do not care. All I want is my money, and I will have it. Curses on you and your money too, muttered Todd as he crossed Fleet Street and turned up Bridge Street at a rapid pace. He passed all the turnings leading to the city and kept on his way towards the bridge. Mrs. Lovett followed him closely. Stop, she said. Stop. Todd stopped and turned about. He was mortally afraid that she would carry out some of her threats if he exhibited anything of a restive spirit towards her. Where are you going? She said. This is not the way to the city. It is by the Thames. By the Thames? Yes, I go by water. I do not wish to run the risk of meeting all sorts of people in the streets. I have not communicated to you that we are in great danger, but it is a fact. I do not now think that I shall get fairly off, but you will, if I am not interfered with before you get your money. By taking a boat at the stairs here by Blackfriars Bridge, we can be landed at a spot within about 20 yards of the banking house, which will be by far the safer route. Mrs. Lovett did not much fancy the river excursion, but she considered that after all there would be a waterman in the boat, and that the river at that time of the day was populous, so she thought that Todd dared not attempt anything. Very well, she said, so that we are quick, I care not. I am to the full, said Todd, as anxious as you can be to get the job settled. Mrs. Lovett thought that there was something ominous in the way in which he pronounced the word job, but then she thought perhaps she was too critical, and she followed him to the stairs by the side of the old bridge, certainly not without suspicions, but they were only general ones. The idea struck her, however, that she should be safer with 2 watermen, and she said, we will have 2 men, and by so doing we shall go quicker down the stream. So we shall, said Todd. It is a good idea. Hilloa, first oars, here, first oars. Here you are, sir, said a waterman. We want a couple of you, said Todd. Yes, your honor. Here we are, me and my mate. All's right, your honor. Now, Bill, look alive. Mind the step, ma'am. That's your sort. Where to, your honor? To Pig's Key. Aye. Give way, Bill, give way. A nice day for the water, your honor. A fine fresh air, and not too much of it. Easy, Bill. Very, said Todd, as he took his place beside Mrs. Lovett in the stern of the boat, which in a moment, propelled by the vigorous strokes of the 2 rowers, shot out into the middle of the stream. He whispered to Mrs. Lovett, now how delightful it would be if you and I, with all our money, were going from England today. No, why, I cannot conceive anything more pleasant. Hall. Both Todd and Mrs. Lovett were so much occupied in watching each other that they did not perceive another boat push off from the same stairs at which they had embarked with 2 men in it, and which kept in their wake pretty closely. The 2 watermen of Todd's boat, however, saw it, and they looked at each other, but they said nothing. They went upon the wise plan that it was no business of theirs, and so they pulled away, while Todd glanced uneasily into the pale face of Mrs. Lovett. To say that Mrs. Lovett kept an eye upon Todd would be but faintly to express the feline-like watchfulness with which she regarded him, as they sat together in the boat. Chapter XVI. The attempted murder on the Thames. The boat that followed Todd did not, after a time, keep quite in the wake of the one containing him and Mrs. Lovett. It rather went on a line parallel to it, but it kept at a convenient distance, and there were those in that boat who never took an eye off Todd and his female accomplice. It must not be for one moment supposed that Mrs. Lovett was quite deceived by Todd's representations concerning the money, but then it must be considered that, with all her cunning, that lady was in a very difficult position truly, one that it was impossible to change for the better. If she had boldly told Todd that she doubted, no, that she absolutely disbelieved all that he said about the money being lodged with a firm in the city, she gained nothing, but simply placed herself in a position that forced upon her some violent action. What that action could be would have been Mrs. Lovett's great difficulty, Of course, she would have had no trouble in the world in going at once to a police office and denouncing Todd. That, to be sure, would have been a great revenge. But then, in the amid of all her anger, she did not forget that by so doing she had to criminate herself, and from that moment put an end to all her dreams of reveling in some foreign land upon the produce of her crimes. Situated, then, as she was, Mrs. Lovett felt that she had no sort of resource but to follow Todd up, as it were, to keep close to him, and partly to worry him, and partly to shame him into doing her justice. Well she knew that he was upon the point of fleeing from the scene of his iniquities, and well she knew what a hindrance it would be to his arrangements to have her at his elbow continually, and so she thought that he would see it was better to pay her, and be rid of her, and so every one would have thought. But Todd's nature was of that mad implacable character, that anything in the shape of opposition only made a wish a passion. I will not pay her, he muttered to himself, if my refusal so to do brings us both to the gallows. If Mrs. Lovett could have dived sufficiently deep into Todd's mind to be aware of this sentiment, she may have changed her tactics, but who could have thought it? Who could have supposed that any passion but self-preservation could master all others in his mind? The two boats sped on towards London Bridge, not the elegant structure that now spans the Thames, but the previous one, with its narrow arches and its dangerous fall of water when the tide was ebbing, which was the case upon this occasion. The watermen looked uneasily at the arch through which it would be necessary to go, and where the tide was raging with unexampled fury, and lashing the sides of the arch like a mill-stream, bearing upon its surface millions of bubbles, and making such a seething roaring sound that it was a point of attraction to some idle chance passengers upon the bridge to watch any adventurous wherry as it shot through the dangerous passage. A rough tide, Bill, growled one of the watermen. Aye, said the other. Do you want to go through the bridge, master? Todd smiled grimly as he replied by asking a question. Is it dangerous? Why, you see, master, it may be or it may not, but we are not the sort to say no, if a fare says as he wants to go through the bridge. To be sure there be times when there is a squall upon the river, and then any man may say no. But that is not now, said Todd. No, master, that is not now, so if you must go through the bridge, only say so, and through we go. We have been lots o' times when it's as bad, aye, and perhaps a trifle waser than it is now. Haven't we, Bill? Aye, aye. If, said Todd, the lady has no particular objection, can we not land upon the side of the bridge? Said Mrs. Lovett. In course, ma'am, said one of the boatmen. In course, ma'am, but, added Todd hastily, we must, then, until to-morrow, abandon the business upon which we came, as landing upon the side of the bridge will not suit me by any means. Pass through, cried Mrs. Lovett sternly. I for one will not abandon the business upon which I came, except with my life. It is more than life to me, and I will go upon it, let it lead me where it may. And I, said Todd, in a voice of great indifference, I, too, am of precisely that opinion. So through the bridge we must go at any risk, if you, my men, will take us. Pull away, Bill, was the only reply of the waterman. Pull away, Bill, and keep her steady. On we go. By this time a curious throng of persons had assembled on the bridge to watch the wherry, for previous to its approach 2 others had declined the dangerous passage of the arch, and had landed their passengers at a small stairs some distance from the strong eddying current that leaped and bubbled through the arch. It was there for something of a treat for the crowd to see their boat make for the dreaded spot, an evident determination on the part of the rowers to shoot through the arch of the bridge, if it were possible so to do. No one spoke on board the boat. The watermen pulled very steady into the current, keeping over their shoulders a wary eye upon the head of the boat. Todd's eyes gleamed like 2 coals of fire, and Mrs. Lovett was as pale as death itself. Perhaps at that moment she reflected that she had trusted herself with all her sins on board that little boat amid the wild rush of waters, but if she did, she said nothing. Neither by word nor by action did she give indication of the fear that was tugging at her heart. And now the little wherry was floating in the boiling surge. that flew towards the arch and made when it got there such a battle to get through. There was no occasion for pulling. The only good they could now do with their oars was to steady the little craft, and so far as was possible to keep her head to the current. That this was done by the two watermen with admirable and practiced skill, every one who watched the progress of the party from the bridge or elsewhere could perceive. And now the critical moment was at hand, and the boat, being caught like a reed, was swept under the bridge by the rapid current. "Easy, Bill," cried one of the men. "Easy it is," said the other. "You will upset us, my dear madam," said Todd, "if you move." And then, while the two men were fully engaged with the boat, and by far too much occupied with the necessary movements for the preservation of themselves and their little craft, Todd, with one blow upon the head, struck Mrs. Lovett overboard. She uttered a piercing shriek. "What's that? What's that?" cried the boatman. The boat scraped against the side of the arch for a moment, and then shot through it with a terrific bound into the comparatively still water on the other side of the bridge. "I'm afraid," said Todd, "that the lady has fallen overboard." "Afraid?" cried one of the watermen. "Why, good God, don't you see she has, and there she goes, along with the stream. Pull away, Bill, don't you see her? There she goes." "Alas, poor thing," said Todd. Old London Bridge. Todd tries his murderous hand on Mrs. Lovett. Old London Bridge. Todd tries his murderous hand on Mrs. Lovett. He affected to be overcome by his feelings, and to be compelled to rest his head upon his hands, while he kept his hot-looking, bloodshot eyes fixed upon the form of Mrs. Lovett in the water. And now a scene ensued of deep interest to Todd, a scene which he watched with the greatest attention. It was a scene upon the issue of which he felt that his life depended. If Mrs. Lovett were saved, his life would not be worth an hour's purchase. If she were drowned, he was, so he fancied, a free man, and he saw that from the shore several boats put off after her, while the two men in his wherry pulled as though their lives depended upon hers. Todd could have struck them for the exertions that they were making, but he dared not even speak one deprecating word to make them pause. He was condemned only to watch what was going on, and truly a most interesting scene it was. Mrs. Lovett had on a large cloak, and it was by the aid of that, as well as by the strength of the current, that she floated so long as to make it quite remarkable, and to induce the opinion in the minds of some of the spectators that she was swimming. Suddenly, just as a boat that had put off from the stairs by the custom-house reached her, down she went. "Gone," said Todd. "Yes, she's gone," said one of the watermen. "She's gone, poor thing, whoever she was, and no one will get her now." "Are you sure of that?" "Ah, master, as sure as may be, but you are a witness that it was no fault of ours, master." "Certainly," said Todd. "The fact is that she got alarmed the moment the boat shot under the arch and rose up. I tried to catch her, but she toppled over into the water." "Natural enough, sir. If she did get up, over she was sure to go. Did you hear what a shriek she gave, Bill?" "My eye, if I don't dream of that. I'm a Dutchman. I fancy it is ringing in my ears. Yet I have heard a few odd sounds on the river in my time, but that was the very worst." "And she is gone," said Todd. "Why does that boat linger there upon the spot where she went down? Stay, stay, I cannot see if you pull into shore so quick. Now that barge is between me and the boat. There's nothing to see now, sir." "Well, well, that will do, that will do. Poor creature." "Viewing it in one way, my friends, it's a happy release, for she was a little touched in her intellect, poor thing. But it's dreadful to lose one to whom you are much attached. Notwithstanding, I shall shed many a tear over her loss, and of the two I had really much rather it had been myself. Alas, alas, you see how deeply affected I am. It's no use grieving, sir. Not a whit, not a whit. I know that, but I can't help it. Take that and divide it between you. I give it to you as a kind of assurance that it is not your fault the poor thing fell overboard." "Thank your honor," said the man in whose huge palm Todd had placed a guinea. "We may be asked who you are possibly, sir?" if the body should be found. Oh, certainly, certainly, said Todd. That is well thought of. I am the Rev. Silas Mugginthorpe, preacher at the new chapel in Little Britain. Will you remember? Oh, yes, sir. All's right. Todd ascended the slippery steps of the little landing place with an awfully demoniac chuckle upon his face, and when he reached the top of them he struck his breast with his clenched hand, as he said in a voice of fierce glee, "It is done. It is done. Ha, ha, ha. It is done. Why, Mrs. Lovett, you have surely been singularly indiscreet today. Ha, ha. Food for fishes if fishes can live in the Thames. Ha, ha. Farewell, Mrs. Lovett, a long farewell to you. So you thought, did you, to get the better of Sweeney Todd, to stick to him like a bear until he should be compelled to, what you called, settle with you? Well, he has settled with you, he has. Ha, ha. Thus in wild ferocious glee did Todd walk through the city back to his own house after perpetrating this the worst murder, if there can be at all degrees in murder, that he had ever done. People got out of his way as they heard his wild demoniac laugh, and many, after one glance at his awful face, crossed over to the other side of the street with precipitation. Good day, Mrs. Lovett, he kept muttering. A charming day, Mrs. Lovett, and charmingly you look today, only a little swelled and bloated with the water. You wish me to settle with you? Oh, of course, I will settle with you before we part. Ha, ha. Todd had never been so thoroughly pleased in all his life. More than once he stopped in the street to laugh, and twice on his route he called at noted hostels in the city to refresh himself with a glass of something strong and hot. He fancied that he wore upon his countenance quite an amiable aspect, and if one can fancy the devil himself looking sentimental, or an ogre looking religious and humane, we may have some sort of mixed idea of how Todd looked when he was amiable. In this blissful condition he reached Fleet Street, and just as he crossed the way from Ludgate Hill to the top of Fleet Market he was accosted by a miserable-looking woman in widow's weeds, with a girl in one hand and a boy in the other. They were begging, that was evident, for each of the children, and genteel pleasant-looking children they were, although now dejected by destitution, had upon its breast a little written paper with the one word, want, upon it. That word ought to have been sufficient to unlock the hearts of the passers-by, and yet how the crowd hurried on. The widow asks for charity of her husband's murder, Todd. The widow asks for charity of her husband's murder, Todd. Oh, Mr. Todd, said the woman, can you spare a trifle for the little ones? Who are you, he said, that you address me by my name, woman? My name is Cummins, sir. Don't you recollect how my poor husband, John Cummins, went out one day about a month ago to carry the watch cases he had to polish to his employers, saying that he would call at your shop and be shaved before he went into the city, and didn't call, sir, as you kindly told me, but has never been heard of since. The city people will have it that he ran away, but sir, I know him better. Would he run away from me and from those that he loved so well? Chapter XVI. Johanna has a visitor while Todd is gone upon the river. Well, said Todd, well, sir, I was thinking that you may spare a trifle for the children, sir. They are starving, do you hear, Mr. Todd? They are starving, and have no father now. What was the value of the watch cases your husband had with him, Mrs. Cummins, when he disappeared? About £100, sir, they tell me. But don't you believe, sir, for one moment that John deserted me and these? Ah no, sir. You really think so? I am sure of it, sir, quite sure of it. He loved me, sir, and these he did truly, sir. You will help us, Mr. Todd. Oh, say that you will do what you can for us. Certainly, my good woman, certainly. What is this little fellow's name, Mrs. Cummins? William is his name, said the poor woman, in such a flurry from the idea of what Todd was going to do for the children that she could hardly speak, but caught her breath hysterically. His name is William, Mr. Todd. And this little girl, ma'am, N, sir, N. That is her name, Mr. Todd. The same, if you please, sir, as her poor mother's. Look up, Anne, my dear, and courtesy to the gentleman. God bless you, Mr. Todd, for thinking of me and mine. God bless you, sir. Anne and William, said Todd. Anne and William, and very nice children they are, too, in my opinion, Mrs. Cummins. They are good children, sir. Mrs. Cummins burst into tears at the idea of what Todd was going to do for the children, for the whole of the parish was impressed with the idea that he was well to do. They are very good children, Mr. Todd, and although a charge to me, are still a blessing, for now that John is gone, they seem to hold me to the world, sir. Well, Mrs. Cummins, I am glad you have applied to me, for if you had not, I certainly should not have known the names of your children. As it is, however, whenever I pray, I will think of them and of you, and in the meantime, I commend you to the care of that Providence which, of course, cannot permit the widow and the fatherless to want anything in this world or the next either. Todd walked leisurely on. Ha, ha, he laughed. Good again. What have I to do with charity, or charity with me? I am at war with all the world, and at war with heaven, too, if there be one, which I will not admit. No, no, I will not admit that. While Todd was away upon this errand of getting rid of Mrs. Lovett, which we have seen he has accomplished so much to his satisfaction, Johanna was not entirely without visitors. The excellent watch that was kept upon the movements of Todd, in their minutest particular, by Sir Richard Blunt and his officers, let them know perfectly well that Todd was from home, but it was not from them that Johanna had her first visit after Todd was gone. He had not left the shop above 10 minutes, when Johanna heard a mysterious noise outside the door of it. It sounded as if someone were scraping it with something. At first she felt a little uneasy at the sound, but as it increased she calmed herself, and resolved upon ascertaining what it was. Turning to the door, cautiously she opened it a little way. That was quite sufficient to dispel any fears that she may have, for the paw of a dog was immediately thrust through the opening, and when upon this Johanna opened the door freely, Hector, with a loud bark, dashed into the shop. So fierce was the dog's demeanor, that Johanna shrank aside, but Master Hector saw with half an eye that he had frightened her, so he went up to her, and licked her hand in token of amity, after which he barked loudly at the shop, as though he would have said, Mind, though I am friends with you, I am still the uncompromising foe of all else in this place. Alas, poor dog, said Johanna as the tears rushed to her eyes, you will never see your master again. The young girl's grief for the loss of her lover seemed all to be roused up freshly from the depths of her heart at this appearance of the dog, which she had some reason to believe had been the companion of Mark in jestry. She sat down upon the little stool by the fire, and covering face with her hands, she wept bitterly. In the meantime, Hector, finding that Todd was not there to do battle with him, made up his mind for a grand rummage in the shop, and truly he conducted it with a perseverance and a recklessness of consequences that was wonderful. He was on the counter that ran along under the window, he was under it, he was on every shelf, and he tore open every cupboard, but alas, poor Hector could find no token of his lost master. At length the howling and the scratching that he made induced Johanna to look up to see what he wanted. She was rather appalled at the confusion he had created, and she could not think what he wanted until she found that there was a shelf at the top of the cupboard that was equally out of her reach as it was out of his. I cannot help you, my poor friend, she said. There seems to be nothing on that shelf. Hector, however, having retired to a remote corner of the shop, and got on a chair in order that he may get a good look at the shelf, was of a different opinion, and finding that he was not to calculate upon any help from Johanna, he made various springs up to the shelf with his mouth open, until at last he caught hold of a little bit of tape that seemed to be hanging over the edge of it. The tape was attached to something, which Hector immediately, with a loud bark of defiance, took possession of, partly by standing upon it, and partly by holding it in his mouth. Upon stooping to see what this was, Johanna discovered that it was a waistcoat of blue cloth. At first Hector did not seem much to fancy evening letting her look at it, but after looking intently in her face for a few moments, he very quietly resigned it to her. Only he kept very close to it while she turned it round and looked at it. It may have been Mark Ingestry's. It looked something like the sort of garment that a master mariner may be supposed to wear, and the evident recognition of it by the dog spoke wonders in favor of the supposition that it had belonged to his master at one time or another. Johanna thought that in one of the pockets there seemed something, and upon putting in her hand she found a small piece of paper folded in four. To undo it was the work of a moment, and then she saw upon it the following words: Mr. Oakley, spectacle maker, 33, 4th Street, City. Her senses seemed upon the point of deserting her. Every object for a moment appeared to whirl round her in a mad dance. Who should know better, who should know half so well as she, the handwriting which conveyed those few words to her senses? It was the handwriting of her lost lover, Mark Ingestry. "Hilloa, Pisson, is you here?" cried a voice at the shop door at this moment. Johanna started to her feet. "Who are you? What do you want?" she cried. "Murder! Murder! He has been foully murdered, I say. I will swear it. God help me." With the little scrap of paper in her hand, she staggered back until she came to the huge shaving chair, into which she sank with a long-drawn sigh. "Why, what's the row?" said the man, who was no other than Hector's friend, the ostler, from the inn opposite. "What's the row? Now what an out-and-out villain of a dog you is, Pisson, to cut over here like bricks as soon as you can get loose to do so. Don't you know that old Todd is a-busting to do you an ill turn some o' these days? And yet you will come, you hid it." "Mr. Todd is out," said Johanna. "Oh, is he, my little man? Well, the devil go with him, that's all I say. Come along, that's a good dog." Pisson only wagged his tail in recognition of the friendly feeling between him and the ostler, and then he kept quite close to Johanna and the waistcoat, which the moment he saw her drop, he laid hold of, and held tight with such an expression as was quite enough to convince the ostler he would not readily give it up again. "Now what a hanimal you is," cried the ostler. "Whose blessed vesket is that you as got?" "He found it here," said Johanna. "Did you see his master on the day when he came here?" "No, my little chap, I didn't. But I don't care who knows it. It's my opinion that whosomedever his master was, old Sweeney Todd, your master, knows more on him than most folks. Come away, Pisson, will you?" The dog did not now show much disinclination to follow the ostler, but he kept the waistcoat firmly in his grasp as he left the shop after him. Johanna still held that little scrap of paper in her hand, and oh, what a world of food for reflection did it present her with! Was it, or was it not, an establishment of the fact of Mark Ingestry having been Todd's victim? That was the question that Johanna put to herself, as through her tears, that fell like rain, she gazed upon that paper, with those few words upon it, in the well-known hand of her lover. The more Johanna reflected upon this question, the more difficult a one did she find it to answer in any way that was at all satisfactory to her feelings. The strong presumption that Mark Ingestry had fallen a victim to Todd had not been sufficiently obliterated by all that Sir Richard Blunt had said to her to free her mind from a strong bias to fancy anything that transpired at Todd's a corroboration of that fact. "Yes," she said mournfully, "yes, poor Mark. Each day only adds to my conviction that you became this man's victim, and that fatal string of pearls, which you fondly thought would be the means of uniting us together by removing the disabilities of want of fortune, has been your death. That waistcoat, which your faithful dog has carried with him, is another relic of you, and this scrap of paper is but another link in the chain of circumstances that convinces me we shall never meet again in this world." Poor Johanna was absolutely reasoning herself into an agony of grief, when the door of the shop opened, and an old man with white hair made his appearance. "Is Mr. Todd within?" he said. "No, sir," replied Johanna. "And is it possible," added the old man, straightening himself up, "that I am disguised so well that evening you do not know me, Johanna?" In a moment now she recognized the voice. It was that of Sir Richard Blunt. "Oh, sir," she said, "I do truly know you now, and I am very, very wretched. Has anything new occurred, Johanna, to produce this feeling? Yes, sir. The dog, that my heart tells me belonged to poor Mark, has been over here, and with a rare instinct he found a piece of apparel, in the pocket of which was this paper. It is in his writing. I know it too well to be denied. Ah, sir, you, will no longer now seek to delude me with false hopes. But do not tarry here, sir. Todd has been long gone, and may at any chance moment come back again. Be at rest upon that point, Johanna. He cannot come back without my being made aware of it by my friends without. But tell me in what way you attach such serious importance to this piece of paper, Johanna. In what way, my dear friend? Do I not say that it is in poor Mark's own handwriting? How could it come here unless he brought it? Oh, sir, do not ask me in what way I attach importance to it. Rather let me ask you how, otherwise than upon the supposition of his having become one of Todd's victims. Can you account for its being here at all? Really, said Sir Richard, this Mark in Jestry must have been a very forgetful young man. Forgetful? Yes. It seems that it was necessary for him to carry your name and address in his pocket. Now, if he had given such a slip of paper as this to another person for fear he should forget what was not so deeply imprinted in his memory, I should not have wondered at it for a moment. Johanna clasped her hands and looked the magistrate in the face as she said, Then, sir, you think, that is, you believe, that this is no proof of poor Mark having been here. As I hope for mercy in heaven, it is to my mind a proof the other way, Johanna. She burst into a passion of hysterical weeping. Sir Richard Blunt knew too much of human nature to interfere by word or gesture with this effort of nature to relieve the overchanged heart, and he waited patiently, affecting to be looking upon some old prints upon the wall until he heard the sobs decrease to sighs. Then he turned with a smile to Johanna, and said, My dear girl, gather hope from that scrap of paper, not despair. Depend upon it the address of your father held too conspicuous a place in the heart of him who loved you to require that it should have been written upon a piece of paper. You know that my theory on the subject is that Mr. Thornhill was actually sent to you by Mark in Jestry, and that it was he who perished here. And Mark himself, if that were so, his fate has still to be elucidated, but that he perished here I do not believe, as I have often told you. This is an exquisite relief, said Johanna, as she laid her hand upon her heart. Make much of it, said Sir Richard. Something evening yet seems to tell me that you will be happy. I cannot think it possible that heaven would permit such a man as Todd to destroy your earthly felicity. But how comes the shop in such confusion? It was the dog. He would look everywhere, and I had not the heart nor the strength to prevent him. Todd has a horror of him, and fright will keep him quiet when I tell him the cause of the mischief that is done here. Perhaps then it will be better to leave it as it is, said Sir Richard, than awaken his suspicions by attempting to put the place to rights, in which you may fail in some particulars known to him. And now tell me, Johanna, what passed between him and this Mrs. Lovett? But a few words, sir, before I was sent out. There is one thing though that I suspect, and that is that Mrs. Lovett has found out my secret. Truly, yes, she regarded me with a strange gaze that made me feel that she penetrated my disguise. I know not if she will say as much to Todd, but one glance of his eye upon me when he returns will satisfy me upon that, I think. At this moment a bugle sounded in Fleet Street. That is my signal, said Sir Richard. Todd is coming. I will be close at hand, Johanna, lest Mrs. Lovett has told him your secret, and you should find yourself in any danger. Farewell. Chapter X6. The cook feels that all the world neglects him, and then he gets a letter. Sir Richard Blunt left the shop, and Johanna had just time to conceal the scrap of paper which she had found in the waistcoat, and to seem to be busy at the fire, when Todd made his appearance. She had never seen such a grim smile upon Todd's face as it now wore. He was for once in his life fairly pleased. When had he made such a morning's work as that? Not even in his acquisition of those fatal pearls had he gained so much as by that one slight push that had sent Mrs. Lovett and her claims into the river so neatly. No wonder Sweeney Todd was elated and delighted. He had all the money now to himself. There was no one now to say to him, "Where is my share?" He had all the produce of another's awful criminality to add to his own. Was he not thus a very happy man for a little while? The sunshine of the heart was not a thing to last long in such a bosom as Sweeney Todd's. His was not that sweet and lasting hilarity of soul that can alone arise from a deep and sincere consciousness of right. No, the fierce delight of a successful stroke of villainy may for a time resemble happiness, but it is a resemblance as weak as that between the faint watery ray of a winter's sun and the full blaze of the godlike luminary in all the beauty of the vernal season. But for the time, we say, Todd was pleased, and the demoniac triumph of his soul beamed forth from his eyes and played around the puckered corners of his huge mouth. "Well, Charlie," he said, "how goes it with you, my lad?" Johanna stared as well she may to hear Todd speak in such a mild, pacific sort of way. "Sir," she said, "I say, how goes it with you, my good boy? How have you passed the time in my unavoidable absence upon a little business?" "Quite tolerable, sir, thank you, with the exception that a dog pushed his way into the shop and, as you see, sir, has made some confusion." "A dog?" "Yes, sir, a large one, black and white. I had no strength to turn him out, so he had his wool in the shop, and tossed the things about as you see, sir. My malediction upon that confounded dog. He is mad, Charlie, I tell you, he is stark, staring mad. Why did you not throw open razors at him until one had transfixed him?" "I don't like touching the razors, sir." You don't? What will he think when one touches him?" muttered Todd to himself as he turned aside and made a movement as though cutting a throat. "You don't like touching the razors, Charlie?" "No, sir. I thought you would be angry if I had. So the dog had all his own way here. I would have put the place to rights, but I thought you ought to see it as it is." "Right, my boy, right. To-morrow will be quite time enough to put it to rights." "Yes, to-morrow. Has any one called, Charlie?" "No, sir." "Well, I am glad of that, for when one is off upon an action of charity one don't like one's business to suffer as well. It's quite unknown what I give away, and I always like to see the object myself, you know, Charlie, as I find I can then better adapt my benevolence to their real wants, which is a very great object." "I should think it was, sir. You are a clever, observant lad, Charlie, and you will, when you leave me, I feel convinced, drop into a genteel independence. You will want for nothing then, I feel quite assured, Charlie. You are very good, sir. I strive to be good, Charlie, and by the help of the gospel we may all be good to some extent, sinners that we are. Now, simple as is, it's really a great thing to be supplied in an unlimited manner with cold water." "No doubt of it, sir. Well, I have supplied the person to whom my benevolence has extended this morning, with, I hope, an unlimited quantity, and always fresh." Todd here executed one of his awful laughs, and then went into his parlor grinning at his own hideous facetiousness over the murder he had committed. Johanna had managed to say, from time to time, what was expected by way of answer to him, but it was with a shuddering consciousness that he had been about some great crime that she did so, and when he had left the shop, she said faintly to herself, "He has murdered Mrs. Lovett." It was sufficient, if Todd went out with an enemy and came home jocular, to conclude what had happened. That person then may be fairly presumed to be no more, and therefore, with a shudder of horror pervading her frame, did Johanna whisper to herself, "He has surely murdered Mrs. Lovett." The first thing that Todd did when he was alone in his parlor, and the door fast, was to produce the memoranda he had made of all that he had to do previous to leaving England. One item ran thus, mem. To pay Mrs. Lovett in full. After that item he wrote paid, and then he laughed again in his hideous way, and leaning his head upon his hand, or rather his chin upon it, he spoke in a chuckling tone, "She will turn up some day. Yes, she will turn up some day, and the swollen, disgusting mass that was once the bold and glittering Mrs. Lovett, will be pulled through the river mud by a boat hook, and then there will be an inquest and a verdict of found drowned, with a statement that the body was in too advanced a state of decomposition to be identified. Ha! Todd actually rubbed his hands together, and then he took a good drop of brandy, and felt himself quite a pleasant sort of character, and one upon whom the fickle goddess, Fortune, had taken to smiling in her most bland and pleasant way. When I am snug and comfortable at Hamburg, he said, how eagerly I shall look for the London papers, to let me know how far the fire in Fleet Street, that is to happen tonight, has extended. How I shall laugh if it travel to the old church, and burns that down likewise. Ha! I think I shall take to laughing as a regular thing when I am fairly abroad with all my money, and safe, so safe as I shall be, so very, very safe. Yes, there sat Sweeney Todd rejoicing. He may have said with Romeo in Mantua, my bosom's lord sits lightly in his throne, and all this day an unaccustomed spirit lifts me above the ground with cheerful thoughts. But as it was with the young husband of the sainted Juliet, the day of reckoning was coming to Todd, and the spirit that spoke of comfort, joy, and security to his heart and brain was after all a false one. But we must leave Todd to his self-felicitations, while we request the reader's kind company to Belliard, for certain things had taken place in the establishment of Mrs. Lovett, which it is highly necessary should find a place in this veracious and carefully collected narrative. When Mrs. Lovett, with a full notion of the projected perfidy of Todd, left home for the purpose of bringing that individual to a sense of his wrongdoings, and insisting upon a settlement, she did not awaken popular remark or popular interest by shutting up her shop, but she took such measures as she believed would last very well until she got back again. She was not sanguine upon the subject of getting back very soon, for she had made up her mind that back she would not come without the money. Previously, then, to leaving, she sought the narrow opening in the strong iron door through which she was accustomed to speak to the discontented cook, and fastening a bottle of wine by the neck to a piece of cord, she let it down into the prison house of pie manufactory, saying as she did so, I keep my word with you. Here is wine. I trust that you will keep your word with me. A batch is wanted at 12 today, as you know. Very well, said the cook. Very well, they shall be ready. But you promised me freedom, Mrs. Lovett. I did, and freedom you shall have shortly. All you have to do now is to attend to business for a little while. When I ring at 12, send up the batch. I will. But yet, what is it now? If you only could fancy, Mrs. Lovett, what it was to pass one's time in this place, you would have some feeling for me. Will you send or bring me some real butcher's meat? Bang went the wicket door, and the cook found himself once again shut out from the world in those dismal vaults of Mrs. Lovett's house. 12 o'clock, muttered Mrs. Lovett, as she proceeded to her parlor. I shall surely be home by 12. Todd will find out that I'm too persevering for him. His fears will force him to pay me, although his justice never would. I will threaten him into payment, the odious villain, to attempt yet to deprive me of all that I have toiled for, with the exception of what of late I have had the prudence to keep in the house. The next thing that Mrs. Lovett had to do was to get someone to effectually mind the shop in her absence, and for that purpose she pitched upon a Mrs. Stagg, a tall, gaunt-looking female, who acted as a kind of supernumerary laundress in Lincoln's Inn. With this person Mrs. Lovett felt that she need have no delicacy as regards locking up and so forth, and as Mrs. Stagg labored under a defect of hearing, she would not be likely to pay any attention to what may take place below, but still Mrs. Lovett was determined to leave nothing to chance, and she left Mrs. Stagg a note, which was to go down on the movable platform to the cook in case she, Mrs. Lovett, was not at home at the 12 o'clock batch. This note contained the following words, which, as Mrs. Stagg's parents and guardians had omitted to include reading in her education, were perfectly safe from her scrutiny. Send up the 4 o'clock batch, and you will be free within 24 hours from then. This she concluded would keep him quiet, and within 24 hours Mrs. Lovett felt that her affairs must be settled in some way or another, so that it was a very safe promise, evening if she had not still retained in her own hands the means of breaking it if there should be occasion so to do. Truly, Mrs. Lovett was, in the full acceptation of the term, a woman of business. Mrs. Stagg was sure to look in the first thing in the morning upon Mrs. Lovett, so that as soon as that useful and submissive personage made her appearance in Bell Yard, she was duly installed in authority in the shop, the parlor being properly fastened up against Mrs. Stagg and all intruders. You will be so good as to sit here until I come back, Mrs. Stagg, said Mrs. Lovett, and sell as many pies as you can. I am going to the christening of a friend's child who is anxious that I should be its godmother. What a delightful godmother Mrs. Lovett would have made. Yes, ma'am, said Mrs. Stagg. I think I shall be back at 12 o'clock, but if I am not, you can let this note go down with the empty tray on the trapdoor after you have slid off at the 12 o'clock batch of pies. Yes, ma'am. You will answer no questions to any one. All you have to say is that I am out in the neighborhood and may come home at any minute, as truly I may. I shall, of course, pay you, Mrs. Stagg, for your whole day. Pray help yourself to a pie or two, as you feel inclined. Good morning. Good mornin', ma'am. Good mornin'. She's a very pleasant woman, said Mrs. Stagg, after Mrs. Lovett had left. She's a remarkably pleasant woman. What a delicious pie, to be sure. Mrs. Stagg was deep in the mysteries of a yesterday's veal. It's very odd, added the laundress, as she wiped the gravy from the sides of her mouth. It's very odd that Mrs. Lovett is so very particular in shutting up her parlor always, when she may know what a likely thing it is that anybody may want to look at the drawers and cupboards. It's a most remarkable thing to think what she can have there that she will lock up in such a way. Upon this, just with a faint forlorn sort of hope that the door may be left open, Mrs. Stagg tried it, but it was fast, and with a sigh of disappointment, she returned to her seat again. In another moment a yesterday's pork yielded up its fascinations to the appetite of Mrs. Stagg. This, then, was the sort of life that Mrs. Stagg passed in the shop. Lamentations and gravy, gravy and lamentations, and while she was thus occupied, the cook was pacing the cellars in rather a discontented mood, with his hands behind his back, reflecting upon things past, present, and to come, and upon his own dismal situation in particular. I cannot stand this, he said. I really cannot stand this. I have had promises from Mrs. Lovett of freedom, and I have had similar promises from he who came to the grating in the door, but none of the promises have been fulfilled. I cannot stand this any longer. It is impossible. I am driven mad as it is already. I must do something. I can no longer exist in this way. The cook looked about him, as many people are in the habit of doing when they say they must do something, without having a very clear notion of what it is to be. But as he at length fixed his eye upon that piece of machinery, far up to the roof, by which the batches of pies went up to the shop, and by which flour and butter and other matters, always excepting meat, found their way down to him, an idea took possession of him. Chapter 100. Todd takes his last walk up Fleet Street and to Bell Yard. The 12 o'clock batch of pies went up, and down came the little missive of Mrs. Lovett respecting the 4 o'clock lot to the cook, but no Mrs. Lovett made her appearance to relieve Mrs. Stagg from her duties in the shop. Ah, said that elongated lady, it's all very well of Mrs. L to say she would pay me for the day. I suppose she means to make a day of it, and that's the reason. Now, young man, what's for you? A pork with a knob of veal in it to give it a relish, was the reply of the young scion of the law, to whom Stagg had addressed herself. Go along with you, I don't want none o' your impertinence. Now, ma'am, look alive. 2 veals, if you please. 1 pork, 5 porks, 4 veals. Do you make half a veal? No, we don't. A hot pork, 3 porks, 2 porks, 8 veals. Don't be pushing in that way, 4 porks, smash. There, now, I've dropped mine, and it's all along of you. Do be quiet, said Stag. Gentlemen, do be quiet. Patience, says Paul, and I'll soon serve you all. What are you laughing at, you little jackanapes? You ought to be ashamed of yourself to be making faces at a female twice you age. And 3 times your size, said a voice. There was a great roar of laughter at this, but by degrees poor Stag got through the business of the 12 o'clock batch, and sat down with a sigh, to console herself, by eating 2 or 3 of the most luscious-looking that remained. It ain't to be denied, said Stag, but they are good. I never met with such gravy in all my life as is in 'em. Yes, they are first rate. I'll just put one in the crown of my bonnet, for there's no knowing a minute now when Mrs. L may pop in upon one at unawares like. It's a comfort to have one of these pies, promiscuous like, at one's hand, to lay hold of just in this sort of way, and pass in one's mouth in this kind of way. Oh, heart alive, but this is a good one. I declare the gravy is running out of it like water from a plug, when there's no house on fire, and it ain't wanted. Mrs. Stag would have done very well truly, if she could but have got something to drink. That certainly was a drawback, that at first the lady's ingenuity did not present any means of speedily overcoming, but as necessity is the mother of invention, Mrs. Stag at last hit upon a plan. There's plenty of money in the till, of course, she said, and suppose I stand at the door and wait till some wretch of a boy passes, and then give him a halfpenny for himself, just to run to the corner and get me a drop of something warm and comfortable. Mrs. Stag had no sooner started this, suppose, than she felt a burning desire to carry it out, and accordingly history says that at 1:15 she may have been seen at the door of Mrs. Lovett's pie shop, with a shilling in one hand, a halfpenny in another, and a bottle concealed in her pocket, looking like an ogress at every boy who passed, and who looked as though he wanted a halfpenny, and consequently would go upon the secret message, for the purpose of earning one there and then. Soon one came along the center of Bell Yard, who seemed just the sort of person. Boy, cried Mrs. Stag. Well, hold on, he replied. What do you bring it in, wilful murder with the chill off, or what? Don't be audacious. If you want to earn a penny, I mean a halfpenny, honestly, take this shilling and this bottle, and go to the corner, and get a quartern of the best. The best what? Oh, you foolish boy. Gin, of course, but remember that my eye is upon you. It was well that Mrs. Stag spoke in the singular regarding her optical organ, for she had but one. The boy professed a ready acquiescence, and away he went, with the bottle and the shilling. Alas! Mrs. Stag was left lamenting. He came not back again, and from thenceforward Mrs. Stag lost the small amount of faith she had had in boyhood. The well-concocted scheme had failed, and there she was, with countless halfpence in the till, and so thirsting for strong water, that she was half inclined to make a grand rush herself to the nearest public house, and chance any one in the interim helping themselves to the pies ad lib. But she was not reduced to that extremity. Suddenly the window was darkened by a shadow, and through one of the topmost panes an immense hideous face, with an awful grin upon it, confronted Mrs. Stag. The good lady was fascinated, not in an agreeable sense, but in quite the reverse. She could not take her eyes from off the hideous gigantic face, as it placed itself close to the frame of ill-made greenish glass, in order to get a good view into the shop. Goodness gracious, it's Lucifer himself, said Mrs. Stag. I'm a lost woman, quite a lost woman. I'm a nun. It's Lucifer himself, I'm sure and certain. Probably the hideous eyes that belonged to the hideous face conveyed the impression to the brain behind them that Mrs. Stag was in a state of apprehension, for suddenly the face was withdrawn, and Todd, yes, Todd himself, for to whom else could such a face belong, made his way into the shop. Mrs. Stag groaned again, and in a stammering voice said, "If you please, sir, I ain't ready yet." "Ready for what?" said Todd. "To go to the brimstone beds, if you please, sir." I haven't done half enough yet. Foe, said Todd. My good woman, you don't surely take me for the devil. I am an old friend of Mrs. Lovett's and a neighbor. I have just stepped in to ask her how she does today. Mrs. Stagg drew a long breath of relief as she said, well, really, sir, I begs your pardon. It must have been the pane of glass that threw my face out of shape a little, said Todd, making one of his most hideous contortions and finishing it off with a loud ha. Mrs. Stagg nearly fell off her chair, but it was not Todd's wish to frighten her, although he had, in the hilarity of his heart, yielded, like Lord Bruffham, to the speculative fun of the moment. He now tried to reassure her. Don't be at all alarmed at me, madam, he said. Mrs. Lovett laughs often at my little funny ways. Is she at home? Todd knew what sort of home he had provided Mrs. Lovett with, and this visit to Bellyard was one partly of curiosity and partly of triumph, to ascertain how she had left things in her absence from her establishment. No, sir, said Mrs. Stagg, replying to the question of Todd. She is not at home, sir. Dear me, I thought she was always in at this time of the day. When, madam, do you expect her? Leastways, said Mrs. Stagg, I don't know, sir. Were you here, madam, when she left home? Yes, I were. Oh, and did she leave any message, madam, in case Mr. Todd from Fleet Street should call? Pray recollect yourself, my dear madam, as it may possibly be important. I do not say that it is, but it may be. No, sir, replied Mrs. Stagg. Oh dear, no. All she said was that she was going to a christening. A christening? How? She has been christened, sir. I only said she had been christened, and no stint of the water. That was all, madam. But I perfectly understand you. Mrs. Lovett has gone to the christening of someone of those sweet little innocents, all perfume and flabbiness, that take one's heart completely by storm. Ah, my dear madam, when one looks at the slumbering infant, how one feels an irresistible desire to smother it. Lor, sir, with soft kisses, my dear madam. Only fancy me now a baby. Todd made so awful a contortion of visage contingent upon this supposition that poor Mrs. Stagg, in the nervous condition which the whole adventure had thrown her into, nearly fainted right away truly. The only thing that recovered her was hearing her visitor say, I'm really very thirsty today. How do you feel, madam? These were delightful words. Though, sir, she said, how very odd. I am thirsty likewise. Well, that is remarkable, said Todd. Now, my dear madam, I don't make a common thing of saying as much to anybody, but you, who are a lady evidently of refined taste and intellectual capabilities, I am sure, will understand me, and make allowances for my feelings when I say that I prefer to anything else, gin. You don't mean it, sir, truly. But I do. Oh, how could I mistake you for anything but a very nice man truly, and a perfect gentleman? It's one of the most singular things in all the world, but I never do hardly take anything, yet what I do take is gin. Mrs. Stagg nodded and smiled faintly. Well, my dear madam, I don't see why we should not have a drop while I wait for Mrs. Lovett. Don't you trouble yourself, my dear madam. Now really do not. I know that you will like to have to say to that good, delightful Mrs. Lovett, that you have not left the shop since she was absent. I will get it. They will lend me a bottle, and I have capacious pockets. But for you, sir, too, Todd was gone. Well, really, he is a very nice sort of conversable man, said Mrs. Stagg to herself, when you come to know him, and he ain't near so ugly as he looks after all. I do hope Mrs. Lovett won't trouble herself to come home for the next half hour, since Mr. Todd has been so good as to call and to make himself so very agreeable about the gin. Todd went into Fleet Street for the gin, and he returned by the dark archway leading into Bell Yard. It was darker then than it is now, and in the deepness of an ancient doorway he paused to drop into the gin, not a deadly poison, but such a potion as he knew would soon wrap up the senses of Mrs. Lovett's substitute in oblivion. This narcotic he took from a small phial he had in his breast pocket. He did not say anything, but he gave one laugh, and then he walked on to the pie shop, where he was eagerly and warmly welcomed by Mrs. Stagg, who very assiduously placed a chair for him, saying, as she did so, that Mrs. Lovett would quite stare if she were to pop in just then and see them enjoying themselves, in a manner of speaking, in so delightful a manner. I should stare, said Todd. You would, sir? Yes, I rather am inclined to think that that christening business will detain her. By this time she has got into the thick of it, my dear madam, you may depend, although I am quite certain she will be strictly temperate, and take nothing but water. Do you think so, sir? I am sure of it. Can you find a glass, madam? I have not the happiness of knowing your name. Stay, if you please, sir. I have one glass here without a foot. It's an odd thing, but Mrs. Lovett shuts up the place when she goes out, as if we were all thieves and murderers. Does she really? Well, well, we will manage with one glass, my dear Mrs. Stagg. It is the first time we have had a drop together, and I have only to hope that it will not be the last. I ought not, perhaps, to say it before your face, but you are the most entertaining company that I have met with for a long time. Drink, madam. After you, sir. No, no, I insist. Mrs. Stagg drank off the full glass that Todd presented her with, and then affecting to pour one out for himself, but dexterously keeping the bottle between him and the lady, he only carried the empty glass to his lips. Now, Mrs. Stagg was a decided connoisseur in gin, and she suddenly assumed a thoughtful air, and looked up to the ceiling as she slightly moved her lips. Rather an unusual taste after it's down, don't you think, sir? She said. Has it? Well, I don't know. Perhaps you have been tasting a pie, madam, and that may have influenced the flavor. Try it again. You never can tell the taste of a glass of gin, in my opinion, until you have taken two at least. Try this, Mrs. Stagg. Really, I. Thank you, sir. Off went a second glass, and then Todd glared at her with the eyes of a fiend as he said, placing the bottle upon the counter, that ought to be a dose, I think. Sir, stammered Mrs. Stagg. God bless me. Sir, gin, that is lots of pies, gin, gravy. Mrs. Lovett in the crown of a bonnet. My dear, bless us all. Lock it all up. No, no, no. Gin, good again. Pies, gravy. Todd caught her by the throat or she would have fallen, and then, as she became quite insensible, he thrust her under the counter. Todd performs an operation on Mrs. Stagg. Todd performs an operation on Mrs. Chapter 101. Todd makes himself quite at home in Bell Yard. Idiot, said Todd, as he spurned the insensible form of Mrs. Stagg with his foot. Idiot, I would kill you, but that it would not do me any good. The narcotic you have taken in the gin may or may not carry you off for all I care. It don't matter to me one straw. He glared around him for a few moments with the fierceness of an ogre, and then walking to the shop door, he deliberately locked and bolted it, so that no one could get in, even if they were expiring for a pie. Humph, he said. This is a time of day when it is not likely the shop will be troubled with many customers. It is between the batches, I know, so I am safe for an hour, and during that time if I do not make some discoveries here, it will surely be my own fault. Again he glared around him with the ogre-like aspect, and he ran his eyes carefully over the whole shop, from corner to corner, from floor to roof, and from roof to floor. At length he said, Where now, if I were hiding anything, would I select a place in this shop? After putting this question to himself, Todd again ran his eyes over the shop, and at length he came to the conclusion that it was not there he should seek for any hiding place at all, and he certainly paid the sagacity of Mrs. Lovett one of the highest compliments he possibly could by concluding that she would do as he would under like circumstances. No, he said. The shop is no hiding place for the secret store of my late friend Mrs. Lovett. No, no, I must seek in the very center of her home for that which I would find. Let me think, let me think. Todd felt himself quite at home in Bell Yard. He was in truth the landlord of the house. It had not been safe to make the extensive underground alterations in the place, if Mrs. Lovett had been the tenant of a stranger merely, so Todd had purchased the freehold, and such being the case, and his tenant, the charming Mrs. Lovett, being, as he firmly believed, at the bottom of the Thames, who should feel at home in the place if he, Sweeney Todd, did not. He felt that he had time, too. There was no hurry in life, and he quite smiled to himself, as he said, "How often I have longed for a rummage among my dear departed friend Mrs. Lovett's goods and chattels, and now how many happily and singly circumstances have changed about to enable me to gratify my inclination." Ha! Todd, in the security of his bad heart, uttered one of his old laughs, but then for the whole of that day he had been unusually happy. His good terms with himself shone out evening of his eyes, horrible eyes. "Yes," he said, "yes, she is dead, dead, dead. Ha! Ha! Mrs. Lovett, clever, fascinating creature, how muddy you lie tonight. Ha! It was not prudent, however, to waste time, although he had plenty of it. It never is. So up rose Todd, and proceeded to the parlor. How fast locked the door was! "Now really," he said, "it is a thousand pities that poor dear Mrs. L has gone down to the bottom of the Thames with her keys in her pocket. It would have made no manner of difference in the world to her to have let me have them. It would have saved me some little trouble, and the doors some little damage." With a malicious grin, as though he delighted in the mischief he had made, he dashed himself bodily against the parlor door and burst it open with a crash. "That will do," he said. "To be sure, the party who, when my absence gets noised about, comes to take possession of this house, would rather that the doors were whole, but what of that? Ha! I have mortgaged it twice over for its full value, and they may fight about it if they like. Ha! Ha! How they will litigate, and I shall read the pleasant account of it in the papers." By this time Todd was in Mrs. Lovett's parlor, and folding his arms across his breast, he gazed about him with a feeling of marked satisfaction, as he said, "For 5 years she has been making, of course, a private purse for herself, the dear creature, as well as looking to the share of the money in the bank, and for the last few weeks, since our agreement together has not been quite so perfect, she has kept all her takings herself. So reasoning upon that, she must, bless her provident spirit, have a tolerable sum laid by somewhere, which I, as her executor, will most assuredly pounce upon." At this moment someone clamored for admission at the shop door, rapping at it with a penny piece in a manner that sounded very persevering. "Curses on you," muttered Todd. "Who are you?" "A twopenny, a twopenny, a twopenny," cried a boy who was at the door, in a sing-song sort of voice. "I want a twopenny, a twopenny." Rap, 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 went one of the penny pieces against the upper half of the shop door, which was of glass. Rap, rap, rap. Todd felt quite convinced that that boy would not go without some sort of answer being given to his demand, so he slunk round the shop, crouching down until he came close to the door, and then assuming one of his most hideous faces, he suddenly rose up, and from within half an inch of the boy's face upon the other side of the glass, he confronted him. So horrible and so completely unexpected was this face to the boy, that for a moment or two he seemed to be absolutely paralyzed by it, and then, with a cry of terror, he dropped the penny piece with which he had been rapping the window, and fled up Bell Yard as though the evil one himself were at his heels. "That will do," said Todd. He went back to the parlor, and glared round him again in the hope of finding something there, but the only cupboard, which he observed was fast locked. One blow with the poker, using it javelin-like, forced it open, and Todd began flinging out upon the floor the glass and china, with which it was well enough filled, without any mercy. What cared he for such matters? Would he not before 12 hours now be miles and miles away? What, then, was glass and china to him? Nothing, absolutely nothing. He was disappointed, though, for he did not find the supposed concealed hoard of Mrs. Lovett behind the other things in this cupboard. Be it so, he said. No doubt she fancies her bedroom is the safest place, after all, for her money, that is easily sought. Bless you, Mrs. Lovett, I will find your gold yet. With this view, Todd, by the aid of the poker, broke open another door, namely, the one which led from the parlor to the staircase, that would enable him to ascend to the upper part of the house. Truly, Mrs. Lovett was great in the locking up way, very great truly. Todd was now getting out of patience just a little, but only a little, that was all. He naturally enough in his own house wanted to make discoveries a little quicker than he was making them, that was all, and so he felt put out of his way a little, as any gentleman may under such circumstances. He swore a little, and was not so polite in his mention of the deceased Mrs. Lovett as he may have been. He ascended the stairs 3 at a time. I wonder, he said, when he reached the top of the first flight, I wonder where the wily wretch slept. She never would let me upstairs since she occupied the house. The locking up propensities of Mrs. Lovett did not continue past the ground floor, and Todd found all the doors upon the floor he was now on readily enough yield to his touch. The second one he went into was undoubtedly the room he sought. It was rather elegantly furnished as a bed-chamber, and as Todd stood in the center of the floor, he chuckled to himself, and muttered, "Ha!" When she rose this morning, she did not quite fancy she was taking her last look at this chamber. Ha! Ha! Well, my dear Mrs. L. you had some taste, I will admit, for this room is very nicely got up. It is a world of pities you had not sense enough to be my slave, but you must try to be my equal, which in your poor vanity you thought I could permit. No, 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 that was impossible. Why should I single you out of all the world, Mrs. Lovett, to be just to? This, in Todd's estimation, was a very conclusive argument, truly. Whether it would have been so to Mrs. Lovett is another thing. And now the arch-villain commenced a search in the chamber of his victim of the most extraordinary character for minuteness that could possibly be conceived. It was quite clear that there he expected to find something worth looking for, and that if he were foiled, it should not be for want of due diligence in the investigation. Todd destroys Mrs. Lovett's furniture. Todd destroys Mrs. Lovett's furniture. In the course of 10 minutes, the trim and well-kept bedroom was one scene of confusion and disorder. The dressing-glass was thrown down, and being in his way once, was kicked to the other end of the room and smashed to fragments. The bedclothes were tossed here and there in the most reckless manner. Boxes were burst open and ransacked, but all in vain. Not one penny piece could Todd discover. "Confound her," he said, as he wiped his brow with a lace cap he picked off the dressing-table. "Confound her. I begin to suspect that what she had of her own she put in her pocket this morning, and it has gone down to the bottom of the river with her. How infernally provoking." He peeped up the chimney, and got nothing by that motion but a flop of soot in his eye. He stamped and swore and cursed in the most horrible manner that can possibly be conceived, feeling that Mrs. Lovett in the matter of her little private savings had been one too many for him. He looked rather hopelessly through the other rooms of the house. They were all completely vacant, and from the appearance of the dust upon the floors of them did not seem to have been entered for years past. He gave up the search in despair, and gloomily walked downstairs to the parlor again. "It is lost," he said. "It is lost. Well, I must evening be content with that which I have. I don't think any one will be the richer for what is here. No, no. It could not have escaped my search, and if it has done so by a miracle, or next thing to one, it will remain until the house falls to pieces years therefore, perhaps, and fall into the hands of someone when I am dead. No, no. What puts that word dead into my mouth? I hate to think of it. I am young in constitution, and shall live many, many years yet. Oh, yes, I need have no fear of death." Todd glared round him as though he expected that the very impersonification of the grim king of terrors would rise up before him to take vengeance for being treated so slightingly. But all was still. He wiped his brow again with the lace cap of Mrs. Lovett, which he had mechanically retained when he left the bedroom, and then he began to ask himself what should be done with the shop. For a few hours yet, he said, a few short hours. There must be no disturbance and no commotion in this neighborhood with which my name may possibly be connected. After that, they may do what they like and say what they like, but now all must be peace and silence. What shall I do with this confounded shop now? I wish I had not given so strong a dose of the narcotic to you, old woman, left in charge by Mrs. Lovett. Ah, what is that? The sound from the shop, as of someone being violently sick, came upon Todd's ears. Ah, he said, so the narcotic has taken that effect, has it, upon Mrs. Lovett's representative? Well, well, she will recover from it much sooner than I thought she would, and that will now be all the better, for it absolves me of my difficulty about the shop for the next few hours. He walked into the shop and found Mrs. Stagg sitting up behind the counter, and in rather a dubious condition as regarded the piece of her stomach. Well, ma'am, said Todd, how are you now? The Lord have mercy upon us. Amen. But how came you in this state, ma'am? The pies, sir, the pies. You really have no idea of how very rich they are, sir. It's all along of the pies, that's all, sir. But I am getting better, though my head is none of the best. Yes, said Todd, of course it was the very rich pies. It could not have been what you drank. Oh, no, no, oh, dear no, that wasn't enough to hurt an infant, sir, as you ought to know. What a mercy it is that Mrs. Lovett has not come home, for she is rather a violent woman at times. It's really quite a mercy. She won't be home just yet, I think, said Todd. You will have time to get completely to rights before you see her, and when you do see her I would advise you to make your peace with the other world as quickly as you can. Todd closed the parlor door, and as it was only the lock that had given, it did not show much symptoms of what had happened to it, as that in all likelihood Mrs. Stagg, supposing that it was fast as she had first found it, would not pay any attention to it or scrutinize it sufficiently to be aware that it had been at all tampered with by any one. Only a few hours after all, muttered Todd, and then I don't care what anybody thinks or says about this shop and its affairs, or about me in connection with them. Ah, I had quite forgotten. I wonder what Mrs. Lovett's cook is about. Todd paused and gave some few moments' thought to the cook. He had an idea of going down to the oven cellar and killing him, so that he may feel quite certain he was out of the way of perpetrating any mischief. But a second thought determined him in the other way. No, no, he said. What can he do? No doubt the house will be shut after a time, and then he will starve to death.